punishing you any.
Gonna talk about you here.
Yeah, you have a big list of things for me now.
Felix, a question about like, as far as if that's the proper process, I don't have anything against it, I don't, it makes sense because I don't care about that, I just don't want to see. If he used against us in the future with a different applicant, if they're like, oh, you didn't go through the process in order for these people, why, like, can I jump ahead? I don't want to provide considerations for the people that are more difficult, I guess, or that could do all sports.
Yeah, I can see that. And typically, if we're dealing with a design review, there's really nothing that would prohibit us from running it, these applications in unison.
Okay.
And so I think we're safe in that regard.
Cool.
Okay,
I will say the church, looks like the church is going back in time.
That's exactly what I was gonna
When I
say.
seen that rendering of that building, I thought, wow, we're going back to like the seventies, sixties,
You know,
seventies church style
I like
building.
it.
that looks like the one that used to be in Taylor.
Yeah.
And we're using the
And that was
software
older
we
than
use,
that.
too.
That one was.
Yeah.
It was
I
just
like
a,
it, but-
it was a copy and paste from something they had from the eighties. It's not actually gonna.
It's
look
not
like
even gonna
this.
be a different one.
It's different, which they haven't done in a long time.
Yes.
Well, that's always, this has been the standard one everywhere.
So is the total
Big
parcel
room.
It's
bigger
called
than
the
3.7
Mormon
acres?
Standard Plan.
I like it.
No, that's the size, that's the total.
That's it, 3.7.
Yes, they plan to use the entire site.
Okay,
No, I haven't even done all of it.
all right, okay.
I think it's probably. Well, maybe, maybe the Senate view.
Any other questions on that item? Charlie, why? Why do you hate us?
Yes, why do you hate us?
Which part?
For sneaking in another work session item.
Yeah, well, I mean,
27 minutes to the deadline.
I've given you guys a few reasons to question me on why I hate you, right? So which part? Fair question. I think the first work session item was on the county commission agenda on Monday. They said, go back to the planning commission just to reaffirm in a work session that they're okay with the redesign. So this is the Lomond View subdivision or Lomond View rezone, formerly Cherokee farm up by the river. So they've made a couple of tweaks to their site
Do they
plan.
have the access road to 4300?
They are working on that, yes.
Is it done?
No, it's not built.
Okay, then why are we even?
No, it done, but is it even, do they even have ownership or?
They've got in the contract that they don't get any permits until it's in, and they're gonna escrow up front for it. It's in the contract, it's in the development agreement. So that gives them at least the sense of comfort to go and invest money. They know that they've got the legal right to build their egress across property that's there. It doesn't go all the way to 4,300, it would go back to 400.
Well, that's that temporary emergency.
Yeah, so and is it a full?
43 is the.
Because I know that at one point in time, we were talking about a half right away, half road, whatever we want to call it,
Mhm,
and then the other half would come, or what are we looking at?
They're responsible for escrowing for the entire thing up
Right.
front. So we'll hold on to that money. They'll have at the very least that emergency egress. Their goal is not to go back to 400. Their goal is to go to 4,300. And they're just working with some landowners to make that happen. They know they have the legal right to use the other emergency egress, but they would rather see that go out to 4,300 for a number of reasons,
But the
including
league, even
cost.
the emergency egress only gets them 30 more, right?
Yes. Yep,
So
until
we're
they,
talking 40 units.
depending on how many units are already out there in 3,600. Correct.
Yeah, so there's a few that are now. Yep. His is one of them, isn't it? You. Back. Well, you're either, but you don't live in the river though. Pretty close.
So with that work session, my intention was just to show you and have you guys do like we did last time. Oh yeah, this is fine, because we've already done this once. They modified just a little bit based off of staff comments, which was one of the conditions of approval that you guys gave them.
So the zoning through the planning commission has been approved then?
Planning Commission's already recommended approval.
We're there, so it's going through the county process and they want us, through the commission process and they want us to
Yeah.
eyes on again.
Commissioner said, did the planning commission see this
No.
site plan? I said, not that exact one. Things have moved a little bit. They said, well, send it back and have them look at it. So I figured we'd take 5 minutes, take a glance. 5 minutes tops. If you guys want to spend more time on it, we'll put it on another item, agenda item and actually formally create a bigger to-do about it.
Okay. Because, yeah,
Well, if they're not gonna go till they're getting their easement, why don't we just wait?
That was kind of my thought.
yeah,
They're a ways away from getting that property to there.
I think it's a matter of
The County's
financing,
gonna eminent domain and do it for them.
and
I
they
don't
haven't
see
asked
any-
that question yet.
I don't see any
It's
reason to
chicken
get
and
the
egg
cart
thing.
for the horse.
It is a chicken and egg thing. Because- If they don't have the rezoning, then they're not getting any lending.
Well, it's not quite the cart before the horse. It is more chicken and the egg because you can't have one without the other and the other without one. And so they really do need the approval in order to get the financing to find out what they can offer on land and what they can do.
Yeah.
Because nobody's gonna invest without having at least the approval. But then we put the contingency that says, okay, you can't do it unless you do it this way. So I think it's fair to give the approval before, otherwise they're just stuck in the mud and they can't.
well, the concern that I had was that because we had such a large discussion on the Bennet Farms, that it kind of surprised me that that one got put in. But if your expectation is a short period of time, so what I guess I'm trying to say is unless Bennet Farms doesn't have anything new to bring back to us, and that can be a short discussion.
They haven't given me anything yet to show you guys, but we do have the finalization of the development agreement. The version that they said, hey, we made some changes and just turned it in this morning in last week's meeting. We do have that. So if they're not here to go over it, great. We can go over it ourselves and have a good candid conversation. Otherwise, if they've got kind of a pre-programmed presentation for you, that's great too. I do expect the vast majority of the work session to be focused on them.
Okay, all right, perfect. Just checking expectations.
No, good to check in. I wouldn't have thrown it on there last second if it wasn't for the curveball with the county commission. Where they're like, nope, they haven't seen this exact same thing. We want to make sure that they see it again. They respect you guys and your opinions that much that even little changes, they want to make sure you guys are okay with.
Blast away, kids. What else you got?
I'm just proud of Sarah. The time she's been on this committee has turned her into a country girl. Using all these terms.
Farm stock. I moved up to the Highlands, but.
Yeah, and all that leaves you.
Farm folk.
Farm folk.
Farm folk.
We're farm folk.
Yes, farm folk.
It's close. Yeah.
But, yeah. I've ridden horses and I did have a anaphylaxis from them, so maybe I'm not a country girl.
That part hasn't been bred out of the gene pool yet.
We're done.
I don't have anything else unless you guys want to talk more about something.
Bennet Farms, Charlie, are we going over the draft that put out on Friday?
There's another one?
We don't have another draft.
Well, that's what
One came out.
they sent me an email
Not
on Friday
ours.
evening, like at 6 PM. With an updated development agreement. I haven't reviewed it.
I'm just looking at the one they sent me last Tuesday. I did ask them to send me over revised concept drawings for the exhibits. I'll have to check and see if I've got those.
I don't know what they changed in it. They didn't
No,
say,
not
they
yet.
just said
Want me to?
attached,
No.
email with the new development agreement.
Okay,
I think
I'll
So,
run a
so
comparison.
if we're on another variation
I
of
thought
the one from Tuesday,
Mhm.
I don't want
I'm about ready to just say, until you get us something that we can really look at, I'm tired of wasting time.
Yeah, so the one that you'll be looking at tonight, unless they come with a different proposal, not development agreement proposal, different presentation proposal. It is the one that they had ready last Tuesday, and that one was based off of comments that I had already given them. And so the version that we should be looking at now addresses those comments, hopefully in their entirety. I've gone through it and there's a couple things I'm still concerned about. But also adds in some of the comments that you guys gave them from last meeting.
Okay, there will also be an update to this update, because I talked to their attorney yesterday. About some sections that we didn't talk about necessarily, but they will be sending an update eventually.
Are they updates that are pertinent to plan?
This group, the one we talked about yesterday, no. The one they sent on Friday, I don't know about that.
I've got questions for you guys about river corridor and about parks and open space and whatnot. So if they don't have a different program to run tonight, I've already got a list of questions that I need answered from you guys anyway, regardless of whether or not this is on for next month or next year.
Here's what it gets
And
frustrating.
maybe that's what we should do is stick to that. Sorry, Brent, just 1 second. Maybe what we should do is consider just sticking to that until we actually do get something that they're ready to move forward on. The collectively planning, legal, and the applicant is ready to put forward.
Okay.
So anyway, go ahead. Brent.
No, it's just echoing that point. I'm tired of every time we turn around, there's a new one of these. We take time, we review it, then they come to this meeting and hand us a new one.
Yeah.
And want us to speak on it when half of the stuff we have in it's already changed. And I'm just done with it.
And last week, they didn't even have another one of these to hand us. They just told us that they already had a new one.
So in my opinion, I mean, they're wasting our time.
And every week you'll see a new one, especially if it's a week that comes after a conversation that we had with them,
Sure.
right? Because they're trying to be responsive to some of those things. I agree that, careful how I word it. I agree that it would be nice if there was a little bit more of a programmed, scheduled interval in which these things can happen, because when they get dropped on my plate, that's hard too. But
It's not fair to us. It's not fair to you guys
Yeah.
as staff.
100%.
It's propose what you want and this back and forth has gotta come to an end at some point. And put us something. We throw rocks at it. If it makes it good, if it don't,
Well, and I can end tonight's work session right now. If they're not willing to start dedicating property to the county, like was discussed in our meeting, our work session last week, I'm not willing to go any further. That's my opinion, but that's how I feel about it. And I think that's the only fair way for the county to start getting that dedicated land for the parks. Is if they're not gonna start developing down there by the river, that's fine, but that land's gotta start getting dedicated.
Sure. It might help to inform those three what I mean by that, like, we're in discussion into the.
Oh, yeah, we have 3 people who won't, including Brad. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, we may want to recap on that. Do we want to recap in the work session or do you want to recap now?
We could wait till the work session. I think that'd be better because we're almost ready to go get started,
I
so.
think it's pertinent. I think it's a great idea what he's talking about, but you need to know what he's.
I agree. We did discuss that in sessions ago too, so, but I don't know what the
A little bit
resolution was.
different, but yeah.
Yeah.
It was brought up then and then.
Okay.
And
Okay,
the 8th
anything
work
else before we go? All right. All right. Welcome everybody out to Western Weaver County Planning Commission for May 13th. We have a fairly short agenda tonight, but let's get started with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All of the planning commissioners are here tonight. Thank you very much for that. Doesn't look like we have any minutes on our agenda tonight, right? Oh, no, we do have minutes, yeah. Anybody have any issues with the minutes? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and approve the minutes for March 4th and April 15th. Next item on our agenda, administrative item number 2.1 DR 2025-03, request for approval on a design review application for new church building. And Director York, any comments on this project?
Administrative application, you're reviewing it for completeness compared to the code and whether or not it's in compliance. We don't usually take public comments for administrative items, but if you feel like there's a concern, you can always open it for public comment if you want to.
Thank you. Felix.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. I'm gonna bring up the PowerPoint slide here. If I can. Oh, there it is. So my presentation tonight will be pretty quick. I wanted to share the, the pretty standard images that we usually share regarding the site layout and the building architectural design. And touch on a few points that are highlighted in the report. And then I'll go on to the staff's recommendation. And bring this into full screen. Screen option. There it is. Okay, so as it was mentioned in that short introduction and description, this is a design review. So this is something that is standard with uses other than a single family dwelling. This zone that we're dealing with here is a A1, and this use is a church. So that site on 2200 South and 3691 West is actually just next door to the fire station, the fire district building. And I've looked over the general plan to see if there's any planned roads adjacent to this area. And there are none. There are some planned roads to the south, and there's also a pathway along that slope to the south. So for this particular site, I think what they have designed, it covers the bases as far as access pathways. There will be some improvements made to 2200 South, including the curb gutter sidewalk. And you also have 2 access points in this church space. And this entire site will be utilized for the parking area and the church building. And just to focus on this site plan in particular, I'll point out some details. You can see those 2 access points. There's also that sidewalk that goes around the entire perimeter of the meeting house. And you also have those ADA access points. On the south side of the property, you'll see there's a little storage building and an enclosed dumpster space. And some of the things we look at for the design review would be including the entire site, being that it does take up the 3 acres. That's what requires us to come to the planning commission for something like this. A quick point of correction in my report is under the summary and background, it mentions that this application is being processed as an administrative review. And that was left in from a prior report. And so this is actually the planning commission approval review. And going into another point here. So for the design review, there's certain considerations that come into play. We look at the access, the parking. In this case, what they have planned, it well exceeds that the parking requirement. 2 access points in that are designed for 2-way traffic. And we also have them spread apart at appropriate distance for traffic flow. And also looking at the outdoor advertising, so there. The signage for this building will be facing 2200 south on the front of the structure. There will be a nameplate inlaid into the brick, and we will also have an address plate that's inlaid. Let's see here, and just looking at the size requirements for the signs, the size does comply with those minimum standards for sign. And one of the things that I also focused on was the landscaping and also the stormwater management. In this case, you'll notice on the upper left-hand corner, you can see what they have planned for the subsurface stormwater detention facility under the parking lot. And one of the things that the county engineering was looking at was just to making sure that those calculations met, those minimum requirements for all that hard surface. So that's something that will be addressed with, with further iterations. We do have Mr. Mike Davey, who's the designer of this site here in the audience. Any technical questions, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer those. And regarding the screening, what they have planned for this site is a mix of plantings and trees with some durable ground covering around the perimeter of the parking lot. We also have quite a bit of water conservation measures that are in place, particularly the use of these drought tolerant plants. And also limiting the amount of turf grass. So you'll see that just that small space in front is that turf grass that will be irrigated. All this entire system will be done through an automatic irrigation system, whether that be drip, sprinkler. And going on to staff's recommendation. Staff recommends approval of the Taylor Landing Church Building design review based on all agency review requirements and the following condition. Written approvals of the design review shall not be issued until agency requirements are met, specifically the engineering requirements and the completion of the subdivision process. So thank you.
Felix, I got a question for Rick. Was that, because I can't remember when I drive down on occasion, was that the last section of road between those subdivisions that will get that road extended? I mean, looking at this one site plan, it looks like it, if that was taken off.
There's another right on the to the east as well, right here.
Right.
It won't take it all the way to 3,500,
Not quite, right? Not on the east side.
but it fills in the gap, basically from the canal to the fire station.
Right. Yeah, this one doesn't show as well as there. So. Okay, I think I've got an answer.
Oh, good.
Yeah, up on
Thank you, guys.
the south side, I know that's gonna be there, yeah. Okay. Commissioners, anything else?
Sarah, I got a question. Why do we want turf grass here? It's non-functional. What's the point of it?
That's a good question. I mean, being that we do have those minimum allowable, looking even at the more restrictive section of code, the water wise section. You take the entire site at 15% maximum, and they're at 10%. So I think they're still trying to have that maybe that element as part of their plan, but that might be a good question for Mike too. But if that's something that the planning commission thinks that maybe there could be a better option above turf grass.
I like the landscape plan, but I don't see why we put grass in it. Just to have green space in front of the building. It's. All the meetings we've been having about water and this seems like a very easy way to cut out some water at least. But it's not in our code that says they have to, correct? No, we could put the requirement on it that there's no turf grass. Go through this design review. Is that correct, Lynn?
Yes. Commissioners, any other questions for staff?
I just think that the planter boxes are gonna make it hard for me to do donuts in that parking lot.
It's a sizable parking lot.
maybe some obstacles, maybe that's a big.
You're talking about dry donuts or snow?
Snow, no, I'll tell you, I was just wondering, we should park ones.
Well, once you hit a tree or two, they'll take them out, you'll be good.
That would have to separate the damages.
Anything else, Commissioner?
Do you want to talk that?
Yeah,
About-
and maybe we can get our applicant up and he can give us some wisdom on this thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Yeah, let me address the grass. My name is Mike Davey, BHD Architects, representing the church, which is first largest name. So the grass, the church in general is cut way back on grass on their sides. This one does not have a pavilion. Some meeting houses has a pavilion. In that case, we have some actually usable grass area. This one does not. We do have 2 pockets of grass on the back corners of right by the building, and then the area in front of the building. And really, the only reason for that is to have some recreation area, you know, for the kids, or a class to go out and sit, you know, during Sunday school, or, you know, for the kids. You know, or an activity, at least they have some grass to sit on. But yeah, it's not a ball field, it's not an active recreation area, but it is some place for them to go sit down, and there is a little bit of that too, is just having a little bit of green in front of the building and the street. Still a lot of people who look at xeriscaping and think that's, you know, gone too far. So it's just trying to find the balance of a good street view and a little bit of grass to, you know, to sit down on or to have an activity on.
So. I'm gonna ask the dumb question. Since this, you know, brings traffic. And specifically, it's mostly traffic that live nearby. But it still brings traffic between 3500 west and the building itself. Would, you know, would it be a stretch to ask for some, not just the road improvement in front of the church, but from wherever it ends now currently on 2200 south? And when I say where it ends, where the widening, where the improvements have been made, going east of 3500 west. Because that part of that road is terrible at best. I mean, it's really maybe 1.5 lanes at most. And coming up to that stop sign there on 3500 west, it's not great. So.
Commissioners, remember this same discussion when they brought the seminary building in, because we tried this same thing. They even get them to put curb and gutter in front of their existing meeting house and they wouldn't do it.
Right.
So. Yeah, it's always good to ask, but
Ask the question.
yeah.
Because it'd sure make an improvement on that road. That's, I wouldn't necessarily ask for it, except for that road is extremely narrow with that stop sign.
Commissioners, the question in your consideration is gonna be, is the request roughly proportionate to the impact on the community? And is it essentially related? So essential relationship, I mean, all of these things are reasonably debatable, right? But is the problem that the existing road is too narrow and we want them to fix that because they're putting a church in? That's probably not the best idea. But if it's all the new traffic loading that street on Sundays going to church, if that's why we're doing it, then it's certainly worth a look. My recommendation, if you do add a recommendation like that, would be to give staff the ability to work with Liam and engineering just to figure out what rough proportionality actually exists.
That's why I tiptoed into that question kind of gently.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great question.
you know, I mean, it definitely is going to add traffic. And I'm not sure how many people are familiar with 2200 south and 3500 west, but it's not great, you know.
If I'm being completely objective with it, I think it might actually help, because I'm assuming that some of these residents are gonna no longer go to the church further west. So it may alleviate some of the traffic on 2200 that way in a little bit.
That big monstrosity of a high school brought more traffic to this area than what this church is gonna bring. But I agree with the point, but I just don't feel it's something we could ask that the state they're in my opinion. I do agree with the issue in the area.
It's a concern, yeah. Commissioners, anything else? Any questions or
I wanna
comments?
go back on the grass. I mean, the point that you brought up is exactly why we need to change the narrative. I mean, just because of grass in front of a building, you know, people don't like the look of the dryscape and that. We live in a desert. This piece of ground you're gonna build this building on, my farm for a few years, is a desert. It's nothing but low sand. And I could agree with your point for those, you know, the little grass pieces in the back corner to have a class or something about them. But why would you wanna bring a class out in front of the building along that road? I mean, in my eyes, you're in a busy, we just talked about how busy 2200 is, kidding. And you wanna go take a bunch of Sunday school kids and put them out in front of the building along a road. I just don't see that being smart, but.
So I've personally taught Sunday school classes and done activity groups at the church. And there actually is a lot that happens in front of the church where there's an adult to prevent them from going out into the street. That's usually where you're waiting for parents to pick up and you do end up entertaining the kids in games on the grass. So I can see it being functional and where it's so limited. The front actually to me seems more useful than the back, just because it's big enough to kind of run back and forth. Whether it's divided by the sidewalk and some trees, I think it's safe enough.
More street trees.
Felix, you stated that they were at their minimum anyways, right? Of, sorry, or less than the.
Yeah, it's actually less, cause if you take the entire site and the max is 15, so they're actually at 10.
Anything else, Commissioner? Okay, thank you very much. All right. Any deliberation on this item?
Where are we gonna be on the grass? Cause I don't wanna make a motion.
I know where I wanna be on the grass too.
We never say keep grass. I mean, you've never sat in church as a kid, you wanna walk outside and be somewhere.
Yeah, you got the toddlers that don't sit through sacrament meetings.
Put a bench out on the rocks.
I feel like if they're already below where they're supposed to be anyways, then. They've already done us a service by providing us a little bit extra.
You get a little bit less.
A little less extra for us of what you would.
I see.
Extra on that side of the
Yeah.
equation. All right, Commissioners. I'll ask for a motion on that item. 2025-03
I ain't gonna waste everybody's time. Cause I'd make my motion that it wouldn't go anywhere, so I'll save you the time.
Cheryl, make a motion that we approve administrative item 2.1 DR 2025-03 request for approval on a design review application for a new church building. I make this motion with all the recommendations and findings in our packet today. That's my motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. See, better do a roll call. Commissioner McCormick. Aye. Commissioner Andriotti.
Aye.
Commissioner Lavelle.
Aye.
Commissioner Wicker.
Aye.
Commissioner Collins.
Hi.
Commissioner Edwards.
Nay.
Chair votes. I see the point. Chair votes aye. Motion carries 6-1. Still with a lot you've got in the road consideration.
Just a comment on my vote, Chair, it's not that I don't agree with the building, I just don't want the grass.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. Next item on our agenda, public comments for items not on tonight's agenda.
You'll have one. That's the big time. I just wanna know if you had any movement on the signage for the public hearings on properties. I'm gonna keep bringing that up until I find out what's going on.
I have an answer if you want me to answer it.
Would you please, because we don't have.
We have a number of signs that have been printed, they're ready to be deployed. They're not quite the same thing that you might see in other communities. We actually it says notice of public hearing for a rezone. And there's a QR code on it, so as you're driving by, snap a photo, you don't have to get out, you don't have to go read the tiny font or anything like that, just snap a photo and it goes right to the work.
Okay, I'm glad you did that, but is there gonna be an ordinance
To require it,
to require
we haven't gotten to that stage
it?
yet.
Okay, we're still working on it,
I'm still working on that.
I think.
That was a big step though.
That's why I was like, yes.
So Charlie, you're saying that those will be posted on the property itself, considered, right?
Yeah, we're very near it, close to a public way where people are likely to notice it.
Okay. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Hey, anybody else?
Hi, folks, Byron White, 4586, 2200 South. You approved these subdivisions and I live on 2200 South. The letter said 2 weeks. We'd be without a road. Come August, it'll be a year. What about the park on 1800? Public park. We lost the only public park we had in Taylor to a cemetery built. Where's our park? And our road? Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next item on our agenda. Remarks from the planning commissioners.
Chair, I got something.
No.
Most of you already know this, but I just wanted official on the record, I will be resigning from the commission on July 1st, so. It's been a fun 8 years being up here with you, but the time commitments have just gotten to be too great to continue, so. You guys have, well, this is your calling. But yeah, so thanks for the time, and it's been a fun ride, and I wish you all luck moving forward, so. You might get to see me for a few more meetings, but just, I officially sent the director my resignation today, so.
Well, you'll miss us bad, you'll be back soon. We won't miss the process, just the people.
Get shorter.
Well,
He's coming back.
you know, I got a lot of appreciation for Commissioner Edwards, in regards to the planning commission and in all the public service that he, participates in. So thanks for everything you do and have done. Much appreciated. Thank you. Anything else, commissioners?
I didn't share. That's a quick statement, just with one of our public comments. I wanted to make it known that he lives on that road and he's frustrated. I completely agree with it, but I want to also make it known he's not the only one that's been frustrated. I've been hearing it from neighbors in that community a lot. It's been a huge inconvenience with that road being torn up for as long as it has. And I know there's reasons and there's things that cause delays and everything, but it has created a huge impact on our community right there.
You know, it was interesting, I actually asked, I was at a meeting earlier, well, it was later last week, and I asked county engineer, I said, are they ever gonna open 2200? Because I was kind of, I agree with Mr. White a ton, it's been a long time, and I said, what kind of feedback are you getting? And he said, well, it depends. He says, we get the feedback that people like it being closed, because that's your main access into this new high school, so there's not as much traffic, but they also don't like that they haven't had a road for a year. But yeah, that's no excuse. Supposedly they had to reset a manhole, I was told. One of their manholes sank, and so they had to working on resetting that, and then supposedly could go to asphalt is what engineering told me last week when I asked that very same question, but
It's
it's
hard,
still not acceptable.
right, and it's hard for the community to accept that answer when there's no work being done for long periods of time. The road's closed, but nothing's happening at all, like nobody's even there. So just wanted to voice that frustration as well for those citizens.
It's shame on developers for
Right.
promising things and not following through. We get that frustration a lot, I feel, sitting up here.
Anything else, commissioners?
And I guess I am gonna miss Brad.
A little bit. Now Sarah's got one up, cause she
I only have one person to truly argue. with.
I don't.
But I'll start picking on other people.
Yeah. All right, Director Ewart.
Rick says hi and he sends his apologies for not being here tonight, but he'll be here next meeting.
Oh, we appreciate you sitting in, Charlie. We're in good hands. Okay. Mr. Keel?
No, sir.
No, sir. All right.
I think based on my last. So be here. I have comments. I'll save them for the very last. No, I gotta get something out of Liam at least once while I'm here.
We got something to look forward to, Greg. All right, okay, commissioners, I'll look for motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, okay, we're gonna adjourn to our work session back in the back room.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome to the work session for May 13th. 2 items on our work session tonight. Thanks, Charlie.
Whatever I could do,
Always helping us out.
keep you on your toes.
Work session item number 1, discussion regarding a zoning map amendment application and associated development agreement for the Lomond View Rezone. A proposed development of approximately 134 acres located approximately 500 north, 3600 west from A2 zone to R115 zone. So you want to give us a preface on
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, so a year ago, January, you guys passed on a positive recommendation for this rezone. This is right next to the river. There's a 300-foot buffer from the river that they're deeding over to the park district with a bird viewing area with a pathway that goes to it. In your guys' recommendation, you guys just, I think, followed for the most part staff's recommendation and saying, hey, there's a few things you need to update before this gets into a development agreement. They went through that update process, and then in fall, they made some adjustments that I wasn't quite sure if you guys would be comfortable with, so we came back in a work session just to make sure you guys are okay. You took one look at it and you said, yeah, this is just fine. This is basically what we expected. They've made another couple of little adjustments that I think are pretty inconsequential as well. But in a work session with the county commissioners on Monday, they said, the county commissioner said, let's just get back in front of the planning commission just to have them give us a thumbs up that they're still okay with it. Am I in? Oh, well, you had.
Oh, sorry.
So with that in mind, I just got a PowerPoint slide that I could just toggle back and forth here. Down there.
Charlie's now.
Really?
Well, it's just you're on the screen and.
Oh, oh. Here, let me turn my mic or my camera off there.
It's a little too much.
Double the trees, no.
You can't handle that kind of stuff.
Double the trees on that.
Wait for that. That's all right. Making us all look bad.
All right, there we go. So that's the version that you saw north is that way. That you guys saw in your recommendation. Basically discouraging them from putting lot lines on there because they'll just default back to whatever the code says for the R115 zone, with a couple of exceptions that we'll talk about in just a second. This was their street layout. In your staff report, you had a staff reviewed version that says, hey, let's get a lot more connections in here and throw all of the pathways on. And I don't actually recall exactly what the one in fall looked like, but this is what their new concept plan looks like here. So a couple of differences is along 3600. We agreed, instead of having this road come through, we agreed to put some distance between here because they do have a significant pathway that they're putting in on 3600 west. And we figured the less intersections, the better. So you got 700 north here, and then you got the first entrance into their development back here. So rather than having a cut through right here, just allow the pedestrians to stay on the path there. One of the things that they brought up to you in your last work session that you signed off on are these little, the pods of lots. They're all single family dwelling lots, but they're smaller. And in your guys' approval, you allowed the lot sizes to be reduced. I can't remember what you guys allowed it to be reduced to. And that's what these are essentially, just narrower lots, smaller lots in exchange for all of that open space up there. For them to maintain every lot at 6,000 square feet or greater, they would have had to eat into the open space to get the full amount of density. So that was why I think staff and then you guys all agreed that smaller would be okay. We kind of modeled it after the Winston Park model, except for they're doing twin homes. You guys approved townhomes, so twin homes might be a little surprise to you. You guys approved townhomes, but the county commissioners said, let's do single story twin homes here, so it's attractive to aging population. This project right here, commissioners have not said that yet, so we'll see. So their intention is to kind of do the shared drive that accesses the rear of the lots, and then the front of the lots will face a common walkway or a common pathway. Similar to what I think we saw. Did we see some of that down in Vineyard when we went on our field trip? So I actually really like the idea of having those houses face each other out front with a pathway through and hiding the garages back in the back. That was our compromise and their compromise from one of the things that they had wanted, which was along 3600 to have the houses with garages face 3600. We said, let's not show everyone that that's our highest priority. So this was their response to it. My only suggested change before it gets in the final development agreement is to just kind of rearrange pathways just a tiny bit here and there. Not add any more, just move a couple. Other than that, I think they've got what our code asks for, and I don't have any concerns with it.
What was the change on the one pathway?
Well, this one, they didn't have a whole lot of pathways shown, except for on the riverway.
Okay.
This one here, well, also, our code says one pathway every 400 feet.
Oh,
Now, the intention of our code saying one pathway every 400 feet is because we're expecting 10-acre and 20-acre subdivisions, and we don't know where all the other people are gonna put their pathways, and so some point in time, there's gonna be a route that really fleshes out as an important route, and the rest of them will just be extra bonus routes. When we're looking at a master plan, we could usually conceptualize greater distances between those, because we can see where they're going to. So if you look back here on this, the brown line is kind of hard to see, but pathway connection all the way up to the 3600 here, we would expect that long-term to go somewhere. Pathway connection, they're showing it here. I'm asking them to move it to here. And then that'll go long-term. And then on 700, moving it to the north side of the road. And then that'll go also west, and then one right here that'll go west as well. So other than that, everything else, they all draw into the river corridor pathway.
Riley, did you say that the density changed or it's the same?
Same.
Okay, just smaller so they can get the.
Smaller so they could get it all. Yep. Yep. And they show a little bit of open space here. Talking to Aaron Robertson, he mentioned that they're not super keen on having an HOA, and so some of that open space might be absorbed in lot space over time. But they're also working with someone who may be willing to pick up a portion or all the property who they're okay with their open space. So
Maybe
Or
in
HOA.
the lot space, so getting more doors in there for that. open
not
space?
more doors. No.
Okay,
So
so just may change the configuration to get the same doors. Okay.
Yep. The max density will be the gross divided by 15,000 square feet. So we did apply that rule, despite the fact that all that greenery that's gonna go to the park district, that's all counting towards their density, even though it's gonna be in the O1 zone eventually. But we wanted to not discourage them from giving more property to the park district, so.
The commission's not gonna change our mind on having the driveway space 3600 west, right?
No, and if they wanted to, I think we'd probably try and help them change their mind, because the more driveways you have trying to get into that road is a problem, more driveways you have crossing that pathway is a problem. If you can provide an uninterrupted linear path for both the vehicles and the pedestrians with a attractive wall or with decorative landscaping to the side in the open space, that would be far more preferable. And I think they're so far on board with that, so.
Way safer.
Cross our fingers.
It looks a lot better.
Yep.
Charlie, I have a question, maybe it's not completely relevant to what we have to do here, but with that open space with the trails, obviously they're putting in the trails, right?
Mhm.
What do they do with the ground that is around that trail? Cause right now it's a cornfield, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Like, do they leave it as a cornfield with the trail going through it, or do they have to put some kind of vegetation, or what's the requirement?
They're required to landscape it the same way they're required to landscape the park strips along the roadways.
Okay,
So what we're asking for is 4-inch plus or minus rock base that's a certain thickness deep with permeable weed barrier underneath that and trees. And then if they have an HOA or the owners choose to, they can get out there and plant other shrubbery in there, but no grass.
thank you.
Okay, any concerns with me telling the county commissioners that you guys are generally speaking okay with this, or would you rather see it in a more robust review meeting?
Just like I said earlier. There ain't gonna be nothing happen till they can get that road through there anyway, so.
I'm good with it.
What's the timeline on these rezones for them to move through? I mean, if this one's really been set for over a year, cause. Like that one, I scratched my head on when I seen it, or when I seen it hit commission agenda, I'm like.
Why is it taking so long? There were some legal things that had to unfold over time. But now that they've got that kind of stuff resolved, they're Sells send me emails every other week or so to get things done, and I'm telling him, get in line. And so far, he's been really accommodating, but we'll see a few more of these coming forward. For example, Taylor Landing one, county commissioners, they approved that one, but it hasn't been recorded yet. We were waiting for a couple of different things, like a legal description change, and they were gonna provide a different exhibit. It just took a little bit of time to get some of that stuff put together, so you should see that one recorded and on the zone map within the next few weeks.
So what you're thinking about is putting an end date, a term on these
Yeah,
rezones?
cause they come through us and then. I mean, how much has changed out here in the last? If we approve this in January of 2024, so you're talking, not good with math, but we're talking almost 18 months. A lot's changed.
One of the things that you'll find in some of our development agreements, especially if we think we're getting some benefit or bonus, is a clause that says if this isn't recorded within a certain period of time, the whole thing.
Well, I agree on a recordation of it, but even an approval, what's the time frame that an approval can just sit out there?
Our code actually has something in it. I can't remember what it is. I want to say it's 1 year unless there are exigent circumstances. So if they're working in good faith towards getting it done, the planning division can leave that file open.
I thought it
was longer,
but it might only be 1 year.
It's one or 2 years.
But is that on a subdivision level approval or is that on a zoning?
Both.
Change? Oh. okay.
So the rezone chapter says something about if substantial action or final action is not made within a certain period of time, the planning division can deem it expired or something like that. And that's for the same reason. We don't want to be tracking these things in perpetuity forever and forget that they are there, or get staff turnover and lose institutional memory and all that.
That's right.
And then we go do a general plan, not realizing there's a whole bunch of density that's already been promised on it.
Well, that's the thing with this one. I don't even remember what the rezone was based on and what, what. I knew we were getting corridor, but like, wasn't there a bathroom that had to be installed along there?
Two
bathrooms.
And you remember, I was trying to get 3 because I can't hold it very long.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Where's the easement, Charlie?
So the one that they feel like they've got total legal access to. It comes down here a little bit and then curves down to 400. But they're working with these other landowners to try and get access to 43, which is the ideal location for that road to go.
Hey, do your first finger again, slow.
So, it comes right down here, right past this field here, I believe,
Yeah.
and then drops all the way down to 400.
It comes up just east of, or just west of Shane's.
Yeah, that's,
But it's.
there's 290s
It's a
on
tractor
that.
road, if that.
Yeah, you
They
can't
have
get
to
a fire
approve
truck
plans.
around them.
So that's one of the conditions in the development agreement, that the fire chief has to be able to sign off on that fire access, and if they don't have enough space to do it, they don't get it.
And the second one, do your second fingers.
It's just straight to the west, this way, to 4,300. Now, there's a couple of landowners, they may go around or whatever, but for the most part, we've got the landowners who are closer to 4,300 who are
Cemetery.
should be already aware that we're planning a road to go through. I'm not gonna guarantee that they are, but they should be aware.
It'll come out closer to just to the south of Scarsboro's barn on the dirt road.
Yeah.
Is where it should.
Yeah, right now, we've
All
got
three
a
ways.
very small segment of 700 north. It'd be super ideal if we can get this one to tie right into that one, but, we're not gonna force any landowners to do anything. And if those landowners aren't ready yet, then we'll let these guys go in a different direction and tie it in later. So, which this 700 north is, a good part of this conversation, because, we'll have a little bit more about it and, on the next agenda item as well.
Well, that's why they gotta add that right away to the river, correct?
Yes.
And that's being dedicated to the county.
Mhm.
All the other river corridors being dedicated to the Parks District.
Yes, so the county will get the right of way, the park district will get the rest.
So not, try to that road that's planned there to go straight to the river. Isn't there a house right on the other side of the river?
Here?
Down, sorry, further west, right there.
There's a development right here.
I think there's a
No,
house further.
Further
west
over here?
no, that about comes out into,
I think
into
there's
Jeff's place.
a pole building house, isn't there?
Well, look, they built, so that, there's the pole barn that's back there.
No, not the one that's on.
You're talking on the north side of the river?
Yeah.
Let me give you guys just a little anecdote. We know that Marriott
No,
Sladeville,
that would be my Uncle Brock's house and it's not that far back. This wouldn't hit that. This was further west.
Marriott Sladeville has all of this in floodplain, and they've got essentially
No,
a
his is
covenant
blue.
with the federal government that says that
And
they
his
won't
is
change
about the
that
furthest one back.
without federal government's consent. And so
Where
the
this will come
chances
through,
of
come through
this
it.
going through anytime in the near future
So it's.
is very low. I think you're looking at 25 years plus before we see any kind of connection. And it would take a pretty big shift in political ideologies of leadership in Marriott Sladeville. Right now, they like the 1 acre zoning that they have, and so as you get other things populating in, you'll probably see some turnover there, where they start to see, okay, yeah, we need to have some good connectivity here, but until that happens, they're just not gonna have density for it to matter. But if it does go all the way through, at some point in the future, it'll connect right into 3,600 and go straight to the market.
Plain City, yeah.
Was that Lease or
Kansas.
Kansas? Yeah, market. So, be a pretty good connection.
That would be handy.
That would be the hope.
Yeah.
I think Commissioner Jenkins was really hoping that would be his new way to work.
He started Pioneer Road.
Besides Pioneer. Any other questions? Comments, thoughts? I said 5 minutes and we went over time. What else is new?
Because we.
Shocking, Charlie, you went over your time limit?
You snuck it in.
That's still less than a Charlie time, so we're doing good.
Good. I really hope that this would be a real quick stamp and we'll get it back in front of the county commissioners the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
We ready to move on?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Well, do you want me to throw my punches now, or do you want me to wait?
Give them the first round.
So I didn't compare notes with Jeff and Daniel beforehand. Do you guys have a specific directive that you want to go or direction you guys want to go in this work session? Or do you just want to go through outstanding questions, comments, concerns?
There was commissioners who weren't here last time, so there's things we need to address with them, and then we were gonna mention some change, we come up.
Hmm.
Like right here.
I think it will be beneficial.
Sit by me.
I think it'll be beneficial to do a quick recap for the three who weren't here.
And then, yeah, what we changed, and then just of whatever anyone else wants to talk about.
This is the same summary that we gave you last time.
I come prepared for, oh, you updated it.
Yeah.
Well, normally I throw
the
your
same
documents in the
document.
garbage, because they change every time we come.
Same document, we just added some stuff at the end, okay, it didn't change the term, yes, that term, yes.
They're just.
They change, what do you want me to say?
Because we get feedback, about the same thing every time.
I
Do you want,
hear Charlie's stuff and go through the stuff that Charlie's got.
okay,
Well,
But we can go whatever.
would you be okay if we recap on
Yeah,
last week's meeting first?
Let's do a recap.
It seemed like, from what I can glean from the four who were here at the end of the meeting, there was fairly good reception to the resolution and to the way that you guys went through and introduced the different items here. So I don't know if we need to go into as much detail, but if you want to just recap on what we discussed.
yeah, I mean, I don't, we can go through and just say any questions on zoning, we can say what was changed and just go through that way, or we can, whatever is the most efficient.
Bren, were you here for the entire?
He
land use table?
left about page 10 of the use table.
I didn't get done with doing all my Ps and Cs. I was real bummed, because that's my favorite thing to do.
Turn them all into Ps.
So, yeah, let's have some more dairy fun about that.
Were you here when we were talking about special permits?
Yeah, because that was what we come up with.
Yep. Okay, just making sure, trying to get a gauge of how much more we
I
talked
think
about.
that was Casey's
But
bright idea, wasn't it?
we're not here for anything,
Yeah.
any of them.
Okay.
But we still need to recap.
Do you want, should we pull up the zoning, the use table?
Always just let them.
We're not going that far back.
Well, I don't, you,
No, I think just let them know that we.
Look forward to and.
We changed some of the zoning, we actually allowed for more things that make sense, I guess.
Okay.
So, yeah, easy answer for you guys is we added an acreage qualification to certain types of uses.
Okay.
And then we, in the river corridor, instead of conditional use permits, we put special use permits in there.
Okay.
We're gonna qualify or quantify exactly what special use means, but essentially it required planning commission and county commission legislative action to make those permits happen. Kind of-
Yeah, that was one of my comments, that's it, or new comments, yeah.
Good.
okay, maybe I'll just go through, just touch these headers quickly. So zoning, gonna rezone it to a base of form base, so that if it has to revert, it reverts back to that. And then we'll rezone it to be the traditional neighborhood zone, which is a pretty short zone that points to the development agreement and then to the design code. Any questions on zoning? Brian, you hold your tongue, or do you have?
No, we went through this stuff
Okay,
last time.
all right, term, any questions on
These
term?
are the four I was curious.
Okay, any question on term? Okay, uses, we just talked about. Density, any questions on density?
So gross acreage, 6 units per gross acreage.
Project land plan, so this is the Transact zone, and maybe Geneva would be helpful for, you can pull that up, just so that you guys can see what we're talking about.
Hold on, can we back up? How does that 6 units per acre tie into what form base has currently? Is that fall in line with it?
The form-based zone, if you're in mixed-use commercial, multifamily, or vehicle-oriented commercial and government institutional, doesn't have a density limit. It's what can the market do? Now, the way that it was intended to work initially on design for the Ogden Valley was to transfer development rights. And so we were trying very hard to incentivize those transfers, despite the fact that Ogden Valley didn't want to give any bonus density for those incentives. As it is applied out west, I don't think we'll have that kind of limitation. And we don't have a maximum density. Really what it is height and how much of your property. So there's a floor to area ratio, meaning a building cannot cover more than a certain amount of area on the property. Floor to area means that you take the cumulative area of all the floor space and you compare it to the area of the lot. So if you've got a 3-story building and you compare that to the area of the lot, you're trying to make sure that you're limited. I think our limit is, I want to say it's a 1-to-1. And so you can't have, if you've got a 2,000 square foot lot, you can't have a building on that that's more than 2,000 square feet. So that kind of stuff is self-limiting. Still have to provide all the parking, all the landscape and all that kind of stuff.
Will the density max stay with the zoning when it reverts back to a traditional neighborhood zone. There's no way to connect those.
I'm sorry, when it reverts back to form base, it'll,
Yeah, if it reverts back to form base, is there any way to say this area has a certain density?
we can if we write it into the form based zone.
I just think it would be a little bit. I mean, we restricted them to a certain density and then maybe whatever happens and the next person gets more density by going back to the form-based zone, I think it would be. If we can limit the density, they have the form-based zone, but they also have the density and connect the two, that would make sense to me.
Okay, we can look at that. Maybe it's a separate deed restriction or something that runs with the land that says the density rights on this is no more than a certain amount.
And if it's partitioned off or however, I'm not sure exactly, I haven't delved into that, but if it's 6 units per acre, then it could be. Yeah, each section is limited in what they do, and if the more they have, the more they can shift it around, obviously.
Yeah, I think that works. I'm not super worried about density in form base, even if it does technically increase, I think, because the market's gonna really dictate. You can't, I mean, if you wanted to try and sell 200 square foot apartments, it's gonna be a tough sell, but also we need some of those because we've got people who need really, really deeply affordable housing. You're just not gonna see a whole lot of those. Most people can't make money on that.
But we could end up with a sea of townhomes and not the single family and not, we might not get the diversity, and that's my only concern.
Gotcha. So in the form-based zone, the multifamily zone, the mixed-use commercial, vehicle-oriented commercial, and government institutional, they all allow residential, but not single-family residential.
Okay,
But all of the other, the small lot residential, the large lot, medium lot, whatever else we call those things, those all allow and actually only allow single family. Small lot residential allows up to 4. And that's a 3,000 square foot lot. So we do have the limitations on density based on that. It's just how much area goes into the mixed use commercial and all that. So
right.
I think the way that we want to make sure this is written is very similar to how we wrote the flagship agreement, which is basically until there is a street regulating plan that governs that question, nothing happens.
Sorry.
No, thank you.
Okay, project land plan, so this is the project land plan, there was a comment, so basically, there was a comment of concern that, we can adjust up to 20% in different transect zones, and the use table is tied to the transect zone, so you'll see all that stuff. We can't adjust the transect zone within 200 feet of a budding property owner, so, or we can't get close, like, higher density closer to a neighboring property. And then we also added, this was a comment last time, but, language in that part of the development agreement that says we cannot, may not adjust the orientation of the transect districts relative to one another as depicted in the land use map. So there was a concern that we could, flop in different transect zones to different areas and cluster big stuff, but we can't change the general shape of what the transect zones are showing in the map.
Which, by the way, if we do we could create a form-based street regulating plan to default to as part of this project. And we would just use essentially what they have here to try and call those out.
Any questions on the project land plan? Development of the property, there was a lot of sections on that. I don't know. Trying to think if we made a change based on. We added, on that, we removed SD1. So if you guys remember, we had vehicle oriented commercial on 4,700, we got rid of that. Based on the conversation we had in that meeting, if you remember that.
Thank you.
Okay. Town architects.
It's actually, sorry, quick pause. That's probably good for the 3 of you guys, if you guys weren't there for that discussion. We had a really good discussion on what 4,700 should be. And I know that it's kind of an iterative thing. When we were doing the general plan, 4,700 was kind of that Main Street style. If we can get UDOT to actually work with us on creating that Main Street style. And so we just had to readdress that question because what they had originally proposed, their town architect is right. If it's the typical UDOT thing, it's probably better to put parking and some kind of an entrance to their subdivision, their vehicle oriented commercial, than it would be to have mixed use commercial. But if we can get UDOT to get on our side on that, and so the four who were here, they all kind of reaffirmed that we're okay with trying to keep the Main Street style on 4700 for the long term. Addressing that challenge if UDOT doesn't allow it to happen later.
It'll be easy. UDOT's just gonna give it to the county, and then the county's gonna can regulate it.
I'm not opposed to that, as long as they take North Ogden Divide. Let's make it happen.
That's not a 1-for-1, Charlie.
So I guess I'm a little confused, maybe I'm forgetting the conversation, I thought we were leaving it so that it was the. Some of you had businesses like that, and mixed use on the front.
Main Street, yeah, what they showed was more vehicle oriented
Home Depot.
instead of mixed use.
Car wash.
Yeah, gas station, car wash.
Which
parking
is the
lot.
east side of that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Did you allow me to put in RV storage in there?
Yeah, there's storage.
You left in my RV storage out. You just left out more RV storage out there.
Okay, town architect, any questions around the town architect?
Nope, I like our changes. We got.
Okay.
We only
Um,
have one, right?
yeah,
The free strike and free year.
yeah, we changed that, yep. Design code, that's an exhibit to the development agreement based on the smart code. Any questions around the design code? That's kind of the town architect governs that, and it's really about how it looks and feels, so. County oversight with the town architect, county has a lot of oversight with the town architect. Any questions on that? Charlie, any questions on that one?
No, well, like your changes, I was gonna give you a little suggestion on removal and immediate removal. I still think that it shouldn't be qualified or predicated off of whether or not whatever they did wrong gives the ability to function and administer the TNZ. Just from an optics perspective, that the county commissioners, if we're dealing with a child molester, the county commissioners definitely don't want to keep someone like that in charge of something like this.
But we
So-
do. Okay.
To each their own, but
Okay, so what, you just want some additional language that,
less language. So right now it says something like, let me say, if they're under investigation, they have committed or under investigation for commission of a felony that causes or would cause a loss of the town architect's license or materially impairs the town architect's ability to function and administer the traditional neighborhood standard. I think we just go back to felony. If they are being investigated for a felony, that's
Done.
for dismissal.
okay. All right. Make a note in there. Okay, open space. Any questions around open space?
Yeah, where do we come up with, on river check?
We did change it to be a qualified professional.
I,
We tied that back to your definition.
is it on the one that you sent on Friday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me read it.
Is this just kind of a mix up the DA?
We wanna
Keep them on their
We
toes.
wanna keep you guys guessing.
I'm done guessing, that's the problem.
No, it should be.
So 8.9.5.4. Additionally, master developer agrees to obtain and comply with recommendations of a qualified professional as defined in the code.
We read your definition, it was great.
Okay, good.
I agree.
What is that in regards to? Sorry.
When we develop within 300 feet of the river corridor.
Okay.
Instead of saying an engineer, because, you know, we can
Can't be
make.
any of it.
we can make meaning-
We know engineers, those people.
That they-
Yeah, we
you know,
do.
so-
We don't want
Know what to
it.
talk about.
I like that.
But it is true, though, someone's doing it very fast.
Yeah. Good. Okay, roads.
Hey, can I?
Yeah.
Hang on a second, I've got something just to briefly
I got
address.
an open space question too before we move.
Okay.
Bring it back.
I'll send this language over to you guys, but one more thing for that qualified engineer to look at, or qualified professional to look at. I'm seeing all these different things that is a non-exhaustive list of what they could, require you guys to do. I'd like one more that says that whatever it is, long-term, resilient, cost-effective. You know, that they're not coming back saying, thou shalt build something very expensive for you and for us to maintain. I'd rather them be identifying things that are
We love that language.
more long-term,
Okay,
or that's very cheap for you and very costly for us to maintain. I mean, we just want to make sure that.
so say. Tell me that.
I'm like, that's fine.
Where's that?
Long-term.
8.9, so 8.9.5.4,
You
we
had three
have
words,
like all the
long-term,
things that it
something.
could include that we do.
Resilient
Resilient.
and cost-effective, which long-term and resilient.
Resilient,
Same thing.
long-term, cost-effective.
I'll get that language up to you. Yeah.
Okay,
Charlie, is it okay if Geneva pulls up the,
the development agreement,
yeah, while
Yeah.
we're going through
Yeah.
this?
You want me to do, I'm gonna go off of this one, which was the one you sent Charlie. The
the
latest.
959.
I can't see it on my.
Is the one that you
computer,
sent Charlie show our changes from last week?
Yes.
Okay.
But my, this is the max, so
8.954.
I'm gonna look for-
8.9.5.4,
9.5.
8 point what?
9.5.4.
Wow, there's a lot of numbers in this. 8.9.5.4.
Yeah,
Point what?
0.5.4, keep going. 0.5.4.
We could get rid of that and go with the original one that Charlie.
It's just a lot of subsections in those too.
No, I mean the one you created for everybody. The easy template.
In the easy template, there's still some subsections, but yeah.
Not nearly this many.
So,
That in mind.
we're just gonna add. We're gonna add language you're gonna propose, right? That's,
Charlie's gonna send us some.
Yeah, and you guys can massage it, as you see fit. I just want to make sure we're not making expensive things.
That's great.
okay. What else on open space?
I'll go with your question.
Well, so I wasn't here for part of this discussion, but I want to know more about the discussion that went on, and I think we were gonna bring it up to them too. About that river corridor being dedicated appropriately with such phases, is that kind of how it went down?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they want to start the project out on 4,700. And so it's kind of, but they don't want to improve anything back by the river, which that makes sense. I get that. Because it'll just be, small
Yeah.
bits and pieces, and it'll just be in everybody's way, especially if it's gonna continue to be an ag production. So kind of a compromise to that was to dedicate incremental amounts of that property back there to the county for the build, starting out on 47 and working its way in.
To deed it.
To
With the
deed it.
intent, so it deeds to the county, with the intent that they're still gonna improve it once they get back there close to it.
Right.
And the county will do, how's the Parks District gonna tie into that? I mean, and granted, that time it's gonna be up to the Parks District, but through some long-term lease or something like that.
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
832 Geneva.
When they deed it to the county, how does the Parks District get it or manage it? Do they?
The intention would be for the county to turn it over to the park district, so to do.
Through deed?
Deed or convey in some way.
Well, and this doesn't play to them guys, but my opinion on that would be is the county retains ownership.
Okay.
With a long-term lease, just for the facts of along that river corridor.
Access, maintenance, just to make sure the
Exactly.
commissioners maintain control. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't-
99-year lease with a
Yeah.
option for another 99.
So the way the agreement is written is that's being dedicated to the county.
Okay, as long as it comes to county, I'm happy with that, through proportionate.
Right.
And I agree with the point, Commissioner or Chair Guerrero told me that it's gonna stay, even though it deeds to the county, it's still gonna stay in production just like it sits today until they get back there, so we don't have a weed.
Track changes.
Right?
The red line.
That was what
Yeah,
we're talking
that
about.
was the idea.
It was okay to do it.
Like,
Yeah.
And so couldn't they develop parks in the area where they're developing?
Yeah, we're just not, so what we're saying is as soon as we touch the river corridor, then we would put the improvements in because we're gonna be there. But, when we start on 4,700, we're not.
It's
Not
a
touching the
50-50 ratio
Yeah.
too.
Some of both.
Half
Yeah.
goes in our phase and half goes along the corridor.
So
Yeah,
the
majority
corridor
of
isn't
space
just.
is the corridor,
You're
right?
you're still
Oh.
getting the parks, but we're still getting the land dedication back on the river as well.
Okay,
So you're getting both.
So as
commensurate
we're
goes along.
building, you're getting you know, the exchange for this project.
Okay, but there's still going to be adequate park space for whatever's being developed that's actually completed
Mhm.
next to what you're developing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So most of that will be private park space, publicly accessible private park
Yeah,
space.
okay.
But also, and I did want to check in with you guys, are you guys okay with the way the agreement defines open space? Because in our typical template, we say public park, open space, just to be very clear what we mean. In this agreement, we're saying open space is a whole host of things. Public park open space is this thing. And their 10 to 1,000 is based on open space, not public park open space. And I see the reasoning on parsing that out, because you got some that they know they are gonna hold for long term, even though it's gonna be open to the public, and they know that there's gonna be some that goes to the park district, and so it's just easier to.
I think we should keep it separate, and they should get their phases as it's for the open space that's for the general public, not the private open space, which should be a consideration.
And we, you know, the corridor is definitely gonna be public park open space.
Right.
And then if there's anything else that meets public park open space definition that the park wants to accept, then we can do that as well.
But not just general open space, if it's a
Yeah.
private open space, like those little spots we were talking about.
Yeah, and we put the language in there you brought up last time, Chair, which was, you know, we'll either put in assurance of some kind, or we can contribute additional ground in exchange for foregoing.
What's the assurance?
So we put a lot of language in
The
8.
escrow.
Eight
The
point-
Yeah,
landscaping
I
is.
think that we come up to that we wanted the land, not.
So,
escrow.
so 8.3.2.1, there was, and you, it's right there.
You want me to blow it up?
Blow it up. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I didn't hear you say blow it up.
Bigger or?
Yeah, it's better. Thank
Okay.
you.
So you get the 50%, right? And then the improvement cost of that area, we can either post escrow for the improvement cost or give you land, additional land that's commensurate to the value of that.
Yeah,
Along the river.
I personally feel like we should get rid of the or and just do the land.
Yeah, but at some point, we need them, I like the either or, just so that then we have the funding, say it goes to fund to.
I did last week too, until I realized that the funding, and this is a 30-year project, that funding isn't gonna be of value enough to do anything with it anyways by that time.
What's the incremental increase in that over time?
You know what I mean? The escrow.
In the escrow?
Ends up being minute.
It's whatever market inflation is. So, you mean what,
That's why I say the land.
are you asking if we hold it when they come in and refresh on an annual basis? If they do, what are they? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just based off of, well, it's either,
CPI or?
it's either, inflation or actual cost differential. So if 2x4s go up crazy, but because of supply chain issues, but everything else stays normal. We wouldn't gouge them too hard on everything. It would just be on actual costs. Makes sense?
And we're on the hook to pay for, like, if we give you guys escrow for phase one and then it costs more, we still have to pay for it,
I
right?
get that,
When we get
if
it.
you're still in business. And I don't want it to sound bad, but like, if you're
Sure.
still in business, right, because we've seen where it doesn't, so for our community, I feel like the land is a better assurance than escrow, because then it's like, well, if they do, or they have to sell out to somebody else, whatever, if this all goes to something different, then the citizens still get that.
So the escrow is
agree with that,
updated
yeah.
each year though, reevaluate. Is that what you're saying, Charlie? That there's a provision like the escrow is updated every year, so they
Our
have. to-
code has that.
Yeah, so they automatically will keep up. It won't, they'll have to keep adding to escrow based on inflation or whatever.
And this is, yeah, and I guess I mean, it's just for the improvements, all right? You're getting land, and this is the additional.
Cause you'll run out of land to donate at some point and.
Right, but then they're still gonna have to put those improvements in.
Yeah.
But if they are no longer in business and they didn't, then we'll still have land, just so that funds to do some big survey.
So are you saying land until there's no more land that's
I think
required, and then start the escrow
I
into
think
it from
so.
there?
Something that we wrote into the agreement for the project we
It
just
seems
talked about.
harsh, but I'm sorry, Charlie.
No, you're okay. Something we just wrote into the agreement for the Heritage Project is that if it is split into subdevelopers and whatever, for whatever reason, county can't get the parks open space that they have committed to. At that point, it triggers an automatic, everybody's paying 7,500 per front door to the park district. And so that was their way of resolving both some of the issues I had with partial assignment for their project. But also, you know, keep us out of having to negotiate between the sub-developers and the developer on how all that works. Plus, if everything goes south, there's some money if development continues to happen. If it doesn't continue to happen, then, you know, park isn't gonna be quite as important.
You're gonna be. But a river corridor would be,
So, yes, and they will be dedicating that corridor up front as well.
because that's what we really would like out there, right?
Yeah.
So, is eventually for all those to connect.
Well, it should be a dedication. My idea was that, in my mind, was that it'd be a dedication to the property until the property had been, till all the property that's agreed to in the agreement was given up. Then, hopefully by then, they would be close to where they would start doing the improvement on it. You know, I mean, that's the intent. But if not, then there's a limit to how much land you can take in based on what is gonna be open space or corridor in this case. Then at some point in time, it becomes the improvements that are gonna be made on the corridor or the parks. So you almost are forced into starting to have to take in some escrow money. Because there's a limit to how much land there's going to be that's gonna be able to be dedicated.
I agree, but the way this is written, if I'm understanding it correctly, is not the way you just explained it.
So we dedicate at least 50%, and then in lieu of improvements, we can either put escrow or additional land. That's how it's written.
And you want to see additional land
I
until the
think it
full
should be the additional land.
dedication
Just the
and
land.
then escrow is what
Yeah.
you're proposing.
Which
Okay.
you're gonna get there pretty quick anyways. I think the way it's written. Cause if they're gonna, first, they'll give you additional land, you know, for some period of time, and if they give you some escrow money. I mean, at least you've got some money to sit on until.
Maybe that's the best way to think, maybe that's the most fair way. Cause if it did go south and they did need to sell the property for whatever, and it's not gonna be this, it wouldn't be very fair for them to. Have already given. Well, I know.
Put whatever we want in the development.
I just feel like, it needs to be a little bit more substantial than just a regular 10-acre plot.
I
Because it is a huge impact.
On the
What
idea
if
of
we-
the escrow not keeping up with inflation, because even the CPI
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily.
No, it
Right.
doesn't cover it.
Right.
Dedication of land is title.
It's clear.
It is
It'll
clear. It is
increase
very
with
clear.
the, yeah. So what if we, so we could do additional dedication, but if the concern is we might not get that linear connection along the corridor. Their original proposal was to do this incrementally by easement. What if it's initially, we've got the easement access, I mean, they're gonna give us access easement right up front through the development agreement. What if it's for maintenance purposes? What if it's access for parks and recreation easement up front? Guaranteeing that if the market falls out or if they aren't successful, at the very least, the park district can use the 7,500 per front door that they're getting from all the other developments in the community to finish that trail
So
corridor.
you're
Plus,
saying, so
we have-
upfront,
if
they
that-
allow people to get through there?
no,
Okay, I was gonna say, I don't like that.
No, just up front, they're reserving that space in case everything falls out. And then as they're platting, 50% will go towards converting that easement into dedication. So ownership would then come to the county. But if everything falls out, we'll always have an easement to make sure that that connection is there. Would you be okay with something like that?
No, I want to go straight forward with the land.
But go
Because-
back to the
Because
map.
the land is the ownership, the county has the ownership. When there's no more land, when the land
Which map,
is
Brad?
no longer.
Either
part of
one,
the
that just
equation,
shows what's gonna be the
then
park
they start
corridor.
going escrow.
So here's the problem. If it doesn't go through, they start on 4,700, that's a long ways there. Where are we ever gonna get this connection? When you look at what they actually own here, that their subdivision, if this doesn't tie to the river. How are you ever gonna make access to that river?
We're gonna build a bridge at
For
the other project.
the. Okay, I can see that, but then it's still a trail to nowhere.
But if you have the property, you can get a connection.
I'm not disagreeing with the property thing. And I wanna see that, and that's what I like the way it's written or proposed written now. With they're dedicating. I do have some concern with the escrow, and I like the point of. Additional ground until you run out of ground to give, and then it's the escrow. But hopefully by the time we get to that point, we're, we're touching this and can start improving portions of it.
And that's the whole hope, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And hopefully,
The development agreement. you're in?
Development
you're
agreement.
actually touching it before all the property's given up.
Yeah,
That's really the whole point.
Yes, I agree.
Let me rephrase my suggestion then, because my suggestion is to take what they're proposing here, keep it, and add one more layer of protection.
I mean,
One more layer
yeah,
of protection would
the
be
only thing-
easement up front.
The only thing that I would say to that is, it's sort of like, it's commensurate with the benefit we're getting is what we're giving to the
Yeah.
county.
Yeah.
Doing that, it's like, you could do the whole thing and we get nothing because it goes defunct, and, I mean, I obviously understand why you're suggesting that.
We're okay with that.
I know,
But it goes back, my whole point was more to Charlie's comment on an
Might
easement.
not be fair.
What good's the easement if we don't have the ground and we can't get to it?
As long as there's the right to use, we don't have to go get that later. That's one of the hardest things when you're trying to do trail connections, is buy a whole bunch of easements through a whole bunch of properties that then.
And we don't have eminent domain for trails, so we
My
might have
only-
the whole trail
Yep.
completely useless if we don't have the
Well,
land.
But even if you had
Any
it-
other development that's gonna go here, we're gonna require
Yeah.
something along that river. So the easement in my eyes is,
Whoever does it has to donate it.
it's gonna come eventually anyways.
What if you get a recession that lasts 5-10 years, but there, so you're not getting any building along the corridor, but.
Then it'll
we
stay
do-
just like it is today and they're gonna farm them.
But we do have the ability through funding or whatever to actually build that, trail along the corridor. Wouldn't it be better to have that easement secured?
I don't think so.
Okay. And I-
Just because
I
I
wanna
want
be
to see how
sensitive.
it's all gonna tie together.
Okay, that makes sense. I wanna be sensitive to Jeff's concern as well, because there is a fairness equation here that we wanna make sure. we're here.
And I feel if they're given their respective amount in property.
Yeah.
In titled property, then the county's getting a good benefit of it.
Yeah, and.
They might
development
need that
agreements-
money too to do something with. This price tag.
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure that whatever isn't gonna be able to be developed on the corridor, right, because you're not getting there yet. That it's not just, well, we're just putting escrow in and then we still end up with nothing at the end. That's my fear.
Okay, so right now, how, if we take out the part that we can, it's escrow or additional land. We take out the escrow until land is dedicated, and then it goes to an escrow.
Then it goes, yes.
The other language, I mean, if you scroll down, Geneva, it's. There's a lot of red, and the reason there's a lot of red is, the question last week was, well, okay, how do you determine what the improvement value is relative to the land value? Because you're doing at least 50%, then you gotta dedicate more. And instead of just doing an escrow of, whatever per door, you then have to determine what the value of the land is, and the value of land is gonna change over time, right? And so we put in a formula that's very sort of standard in real estate contracts, which is, we would provide an appraisal. This is what we think the value of the land is. If you guys disagree, you get another appraisal, and then there's some kind of mediation.
As long as that guy right there is good with it.
It's getting
That's
overcomplicated.
yeah.
Because the land, this land, because of the way that it's going to be governed going forward. The only value it has to you is the value and density that you're getting out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, there is no value on that land. That land's being dedicated, so you can call that zero, or you can call it $1 million, whichever way you look at it.
Sure, but the question is, what is the incremental, so we're in.
You've gotta put a number on that proportional amount. How many acres are they gonna get?
Okay, so $7,500, how many units per acre are you getting?
Six.
Just 6 straight through? So what's
We did
that number?
math. I want, gosh, it was really high. I can't remember. I wanna say it was north of 10 million.
Oh, that's pretty easy. Take it. What are we at? 550
6 units?
acres?
So would it be based on the phase?
About
Well, unit?
It's not the 7,500 though, it's the cost of the improvements.
Yes.
And that's the problem, like if you have a section of the river corridor that we do the master plan, and it's got all these improvements with. You got an amphitheater, whatever, it's $1 million.
Yeah.
How much extra land is $1 million?
Worth, yep.
You know what I mean? That's the question. How do you solve that question? And this is an attempt to do that where we order a third party appraisal.
How many acres are in that corridor?
Just do 3,000 units, because that's about what we were been
Yeah.
talking about from the
Okay.
beginning.
Right,
So
yeah,
3,000.
I actually did 2,800, so, okay, so if you wanna put a per acre price on it. So if you've got a calculation on how many acres are in that 100-foot corridor, then we can maybe do some math. with-
Say 40.
Okay,
I remember.
times 75, zero, so that's $21 million.
That's
But we know that not all of that $7,500 is going to go to
The
the
corridor, yeah.
So what's the proportionate amount?
That's-
Of $7,500 per front
That's
door.
why I don't disagree with the appraisal part. I think as long as we're getting it. And legal feels good with the way the contract wrote of how that dollar amount's coming. In my eyes, from what our job is here tonight, is to say we're getting the ground.
Yeah.
And there's a way to figure it out.
Okay.
That's why we have attorneys.
Okay.
To figure that out.
it's a job security for Liam.
Well, and we're not trying to overcome, I mean, we're not trying to, we just didn't know how to come up with it, and this is something we use in lots of different
Right,
scenarios.
okay, that's fair, what Brent said is fair, I like that.
So are we taking away the or though? That's what I wanna know.
Yeah, we're removing escrow or this. I think the idea is that it's land 50% plus the whatever the value of the improvements in land. Until we get through the corridor, and then it goes to an escrow.
You need any more information on that from us?
No, I'll have to read later. The rest of it.
I expect you to do that now, Liam, and give us an answer.
Thank you, Brent.
And obviously, I mean, we'll work out whatever seems standard, but I think the concept is. We would come up with a value. If you disagree, you counter, and then there's some kind of mediation in that. So, okay, anything else on open space?
I have one question, I don't know if you guys covered it, was just what counts as open space as far as like a width requirement or square footage, because we were talking about like is
Yeah.
every little
So
parcel.
public park open space has a definition. There's like
Okay.
a size minimum,
Okay,
because your park district doesn't want to just take a bunch of smaller parks, and so. Open space can count towards, our open space requirement is everything, public park open space has a minimum.
and in your requirements are based on public,
No,
you have
No,
requirements for how much public, or is it just open?
Our requirements open space. In terms of what
What
we're
counts
willing
towards-
to.
So that's the thing I kind of take issue with, is I
Same.
just don't
Don't worry
think
about it.
any old random piece of leftover land should count towards open space. I think it has to be
Usable.
usable. If it's not usable, I just don't think
Yeah,
it's.
so that's a good question, something we've talked about a lot, there's. It's like a lot of times county projects they'll include the detention pond as open space.
Mhm.
Well, that's not usable for anyone, but I mean, I guess in some ways you can put a field in some of those, but
In Utah, they're fairly useful.
no, I know, but yeah, good, yeah.
Detention ponds don't work.
But I think how we've approached it is there's an idea of passive kind of open space where it makes the place feel a lot better.
Mhm.
And why be deemed for trying to put more open space? Because the alternative is, what we just saw in the project before, which is. Why have it? It's kind of a pain to maintain. So let's just put let's have everything be not open and cover it with buildings and then put all the open space into big swaths. And if you go to neighborhoods like we're trying to build, the little open space all over the place actually creates.
And I'm okay with little, but I'm not okay. So what I was thinking is like somewhere around 50 feet or 30 feet, like something actually usable for something, or so little pieces of open space maybe could count, but how little are we going? Are we gonna count the 3 feet wide for
Sure,
3 miles?
sure, and
You know what I
that
mean?
seems so, that seems silly on one hand, but on one hand, it doesn't really dent our open space requirement, right?
Well, it's 3 feet for miles and miles can really add up.
Well, we don't have that, but I understand where you're going, but I also think on the flip side, having tons of little open space actually creates a better park passive recreation experience.
But who's
It's
paying to maintain that?
We are,
It's all private.
It's all private.
yes.
So I don't think that should count.
So I just don't think it should count, because what it does is you need that to sell these homes. That's what makes them nice. That's what you're putting in to make these nice with people that live there. And if they're private, that's just, to me, that's just part of development.
But there's trails everywhere for the general community, and you're walking
So it's
through.
all publicly, it's all open to public. We have it has to be open from dusk to dawn,
Mhm.
we have to keep like.
Yeah, the trails can count. If there's a trail, then we'd have a certain width, and yes, that
Yeah,
would
but what
count.
you're saying is, a park that's the size of this table does nothing for the broader community, right? And what we're saying is, if there's a trail along this, and you have that experience of an open, you're not just right by a building, but you have areas of reprieve all along the community, it actually is a benefit to whoever comes in and uses this.
And so how wide is that we count it? Because we are counting the trail systems.
Yeah, we don't have a minimum open space because it, again, it's, now, you know, your idea of like this width for miles and miles, maybe limit, you know, how far that can go. But
Like a minimum of 20 feet, like if the trail doesn't have, I just think there should be some sort of boundary so that. If it's not next to a trail, it's just some open space next to someone's house or it within an HOA community. It's like, yeah, that's what they need for their community and they're benefiting from it. But the greater community, I don't think it's benefiting from the 20 feet of whatever that's next to that one house.
I mean, that for us, in the smart code and traditional neighborhoods, the value proposition for that community and for everyone else around is the public realm.
It's a curb appeal and it does that.
I agree, like, I think you need that, I mean, people have dogs, people stop, wanna, I mean, I think it makes them better.
Well, yeah, but that's their private land. And.
But it's public, but it's not like a private, it's for everyone.
Sport everyone should privately
But
maintain.
everyone's required to have a park strip and it's for everyone, but do we count that as
No,
open?
But we're not
space?
counting the park.
They're
Park
not counting
strips
the
don't
park
count.
strip.
Okay, well,
Yeah, that's what
I
she's
didn't know
asking.
that. That's what I'm asking,
Oh,
like,
sorry.
park strips
Yeah.
and like just
No.
one random little.
So roundabout
piece of land.
spaces, park strips, stuff like that, we ended up agreeing on. If the right of way is widening, due to a pedestrian facility. That they are proposing that comes with some acreage. Then the differential amount of widening will count towards open space.
But not the required right of way.
But not what's within
See,
required.
that-
Sorry,
that-
okay,
okay,
yeah.
so I was just like, I just didn't wanna be nickel and dimed in every little like, well, we put 3 square feet of grass here, so that one counts. We're all benefiting from that.
No, we get that.
I remember in a conversation months ago, you brought up a picture that was like a buffer zone, had some trees in it, and you're wondering if that counted, right? It was like next to a road. Are we counting those?
If it's above and beyond what their street cross section shows. And, and there's some pedestrian facility that's tied to it.
Okay, so if it's next to a pedestrian facility, so it can be enjoyed, then it's considered open space, but if it's just. if
And that
it-
doesn't exist, but yeah, what you're suggesting, everything is connected.
Okay, otherwise it's, I mean, you can
Yeah,
say
a
me in the
backyard.
HOA,
Yeah,
like
I
you only
understand.
own your house.
Backyards don't count. Yeah.
But if you're in an HOA community and they have all common ground and they're only owning the land underneath their house, I don't think it's fair to count all of the common space in the HOA that's just between the houses.
Yeah.
As open space,
Yeah.
that's what I'm worried about.
And originally, we reported back to them that we wanted any open space parcel that's gonna fit the criteria, has to be, what do we say, like 5,000 square feet or something like that. And, you know, they came back with, you know, there's a lot of really cool open spaces that are a lot smaller than 5,000. You can build a plaza with much less than 5,000 square feet. And so we backed away from that in favor of saying, okay, plazas are great, landscape areas are great. So I might have answered your question a little bit differently than you meant, than what you meant. Landscape areas are okay with or without a trail. And then they just have to have a minimum amount of landscaping, in order to qualify. And then parts of rights of way that are additive to what their base standard, if there's a trail connected to it, can count as well.
Okay.
And maybe we should just look at the definition. Let's just look at the definition. And
I
read
think
it.
mine would just be the concern that we have this HOA and everyone only owns the land underneath them, but they fence the land around them that's actually common ground, but it's considered an open space.
That's a really good
That's
concern.
what I'm really concerned about.
Yeah, but I think we can read it. I think it talks about public, like, that's more of a private. That seems like a yard.
No,
It
what
doesn't-
she's saying is if there is public open space immediately adjacent to someone's yard and they don't see anyone using it, oftentimes they'll creep out there and they'll put their fence all the way around.
Or even HOAs in general. My mom lives in an HOA. her common yard is fenced and she only owns the land underneath her house. And that's a very common HOA thing to do.
So like
And
limited common area.
yeah, and sometimes it's fenced and sometimes it's not, but that's
Yeah.
really their yard. And I just wouldn't want to see everyone's house. They only own their house and the open space is everyone's yard.
So why don't we go to the definition?
We
of
can
open
put some
space and
stuff
just
in
look
there,
at that?
yeah.
Isn't it?
That's what
three
I'm trying to
something?
Yeah, I understand that. And then, the nice thing about us here is we have a town architect that won't allow
I think
that,
it's two something.
but versus,
They wouldn't allow that.
no, they wouldn't.
Yeah, right there somewhere.
No,
But we can put language in there that says you can't fence, that you can't do what you just described.
in part, because it could be fenced or unfenced.
a lot of
Yeah, I
words.
know, but lucky I knew it was early,
Oh, there
I
you
think it's
go.
three
Is that the
something.
difference between limited common and common though?
You make it
Because limited common,
fill
you
the screen.
can't fence. We're a
Yeah,
part of
it
the
makes it so
PRUD.
small on
Yeah,
Zoom, it is
a
on full
or a-
screen,
Yeah.
but I'll take.
Like the
at
limited
least-
common, you
Maybe
can
zoom.
fence,
Mhm.
but like in Ogden City, the common area.
Yeah.
No, it's
Counts
me.
towards like.
Oh,
the
no, no,
common area.
who's
running
the meeting?
PRUD.
Oh, the whole thing is you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Limited
no,
common
she's
does not.
the meeting.
And you're sharing your.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
She's
that's why
sharing.
it's so small.
So that's what.
What do you want?
Will you
That's
open
Ogden's
Zoom?
code, I don't know,
It's
like
right here.
everyone's, every season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my mom.
Do you want the,
You don't
would you
Why
like
don't you just give
this?
me the map? Can't
There you
explain.
go.
I don't think we've even contemplated yards.
Oh, yeah, I can, that's.
But there's gonna be natural spacing between houses, and I just don't want every space between houses counted as open space.
Not really.
Like the,
Most people leave.
if they don't have lots, if we're not limiting the lot size. And they don't have offsets, that are just naturally occurring, then all of a sudden every slide between each house.
You could just,
Space, that's.
can you just toggle the thing?
Wait, how about this? Is that gonna be it?
What are you doing?
Well, it's
That's
closer.
better.
It's better,
Bigger.
I
yeah.
think you can also,
I think you can
It
drag, are you trying to get rid of the names? Just drag it
Just-
over.
Yeah, there you go.
that's a little bit, but.
Is that all it would go?
Good enough.
Yeah.
Like, I trust the vision, what you guys showed us, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I plan on that being what it is.
Yeah.
However, it's just to assure that you're not.
Yeah, I
selling
understand.
something different,
I
right?
understand.
So,
I think where I just don't wanna be disincentivized to create a ton of
right.
little open space. I think it's actually what creates interesting places.
Yeah, I agree. Like the pictures you showed us, so.
Just somehow to protect that, every space between each home isn't open space
So
criteria.
Unless it truly is, and then you say no fences there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where does the line get, cause
But that's what I'm worried about is if.
we might have an answer hidden
Okay.
somewhere in the definition. So the definition of open space means an above ground outdoor area dedicated for use by the public without fee unless otherwise specifically provided in this agreement and otherwise in accordance with this agreement. Open space includes the above ground outdoor area of public park open space, where there's a definition for that. Open space areas may include developed or undeveloped areas for recreational, agricultural, aesthetic, social, cultural, educational, or entertainment uses, including but not limited to pedestrian, bicycle, equestrian pathways and trails, regional and neighborhood parks, water features and waterways, natural habitat areas, plazas, commonly maintained natural or landscape areas, stormwater retention areas, public schools and other public civic spaces or civic spaces for the benefit of the public. Agritourism uses with or without a fee, trails which are in addition to and not in lieu of the sidewalk or trail requirement of the major street. Okay, we'll just scroll down to that.
Sorry.
Or minor street cross section. The positive incremental difference being, this is what I mentioned to you, Casey, between the park strip and the street median area is actually constructed in the standard required by this agreement. So, I mean, we don't have to spend too much time on that. So if you go back up one, the key here. Above ground area, and maybe we shouldn't say dedicated, we say devoted for use by the public. That's the key criteria to qualify everything that's in that list. So if it ends up being someone's limited common area that they fenced in, it wouldn't qualify as open space, and so they'd be in
So I assume like
non-compliance.
a condominium building or an apartment building would have some fenced off area just for them. Or wouldn't it, or
They could,
I mean, yeah,
they
could.
could, they couldn't.
it's just that wouldn't count towards the
open
open
space.
space, minimal
Once
10
it was
acres to
fenced
1,000.
off.
Yeah,
If it wasn't fenced off and anyone could come and use it, so I guess it would just, it would be a benefit if everyone can use it, it would just depend on the marketability, obviously.
Yeah.
So if someone doesn't want a house where people can walk all around it right next to their house and have the right to.
that's it.
Yep. Then we
Got
can
it.
count. I believe.
Okay.
I had a little bit of concern over, right of exclusivity being counted as public open space, like, a HOA pool. It's outside, but there's a fence around it.
But it
No one else can use it, so it shouldn't be counted as public. So we tailored this to that idea.
All right, I'm good, sorry.
You're good. Anything else on open space? Okay, roads. So we made a couple changes on roads. You go to the road, exhibit Geneva.
Roads, where we're going, Marty, we don't need roads.
It's interesting. Charlie wanted that one.
Smart guy. So he knows what you developers do.
Yeah. All of our open space is underground.
Above, oh yeah, specify above ground.
Okay, roads. So we added a connection for 9th South.
And the only reason it shows connecting there, Charlie, I hope that.
We don't own the property, but
Yeah, is because there aren't any other interiors shown, so that was the best way to put it is into Avenue 2.
Any particular reason not to go up?
Well, the only reason, because we don't show any of those interior roads, so putting it through there was throwing off the transportation map. So we just tried to match the avenue. It doesn't mean that it can't go that way.
there
It
will be
just-
roads, there will be
yes.
roads, but it, you know, it connects to 5100, which is. Um. a
Because we
major
know what
road.
your intent is, it just the way that this map is created, it was weird to all of a sudden throw a road in there when we have Avenue 1, we have Avenue 2, so we connected it there. I'm sure it will still connect to the interiors that end up being there.
Okay, we did talk to some of these landowners about the probability, the hope that that 900 curves up a little earlier, so it's not right in their backyard.
Well, and your form-based one, or your general plan one shows really it just connecting right up here to Avenue 1, and it kind of looked dumb. So sorry.
That was Charlie's road.
So we curved into Avenue 2 so that it came into the commercial village here, so it was more thoughtful on our part.
Okay.
Does that make sense? But it doesn't mean that it can't connect here.
Okay.
So, and we can also, I mean, if you have hesitation, there aren't any interior roads shown. So it was weird to just pop that one in.
As opposed to minor collector roads.
Yeah, and we
That's
left
the
that minor or major because that's how you have it classified.
Yep.
The other way.
Okay. I get it.
So we did, and it still pops it into a commercial area here in this village center, and then obviously it can still connect here.
Okay, maybe we could put a little bit extra language in the development agreement that says, all efforts will be made to, get that tied in.
Yeah.
Cause I think the relationship between this village and your internal village areas is gonna be important long-term. At least important to the community, probably not quite as important for you guys. So maybe we just.
We can tweak it if you need it.
And then it depends on if that property becomes part of it at some point
Right.
in time too,
Mhm.
so,
It's key.
you know, yeah.
Yeah, actually, Jeff and I were talking a little bit about 400. They're showing 400 coming to right here. My most recent comment back to them is bring it to 400. We don't want a little jog right here. And Jeff said, we don't own that. Well, that's a problem. So we gotta figure out how to overcome the kind of stuff where if they don't own it, how are we gonna make sure we help with that? So here I would still expect 400 to come up here, but maybe they can create an entrance that curves around and intersects into it. But can't make it build
Yeah, you
something,
don't want
somebody
an
else's property.
offset across 4,700.
I mean, we don't want to offset either. We just have to be able to get in.
Yeah.
the property, so.
You should just ask them if you can build a road through their property. I think there's a house there.
Where's Jill? Jill here?
Is that- That's Peninsula's property, I think.
All of that's.
900.
On the south is-
Yeah, on the south. I don't know who, these are just some residential homes.
Actually, what we're here on this map, just real quick, they solved my concern about 700, rather than coming across into the city. It just ties right into unincorporated area, and they don't have to build it to go around that way. They can build it down this way. The development agreement says that they could choose how it goes in. It just needs to provide a straight shot, basically.
Okay, anything else on roads? Public rights of way, I don't know, utilities, pathways, public park open space, I think we talked about that. Development applications, Any questions on how that happens?
Charlie, you and Liam, both of you guys were comfortable with that, right?
Which the parks?
Development applications, how we,
Yeah, all of that.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause that's all administrative stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't, did we even go over that last one, actually?
I don't know that we did, but I've read through everything and I don't have any concerns about it. With one exception, it still seems like Craig may not fully understand that our version of design review, what design review means to us isn't the same thing as what design review means to the smart code. So we've got a design review process that commercial buildings, well, everything essentially that's not single family residential still has to go through. During that time, we do look at things like landscaping and building material and all that. But we would exempt these if it's got sign off by the architect.
Yeah.
But we would still want to look at things like emergency
Yeah.
access and
engineering,
engineering stuff. So he made a comment about some of the engineering still being there, but if you look at our design review section, there's more in there than just.
Yeah, the intent is not to have the.
Not to
town
exempt that.
architect to exempt that stuff.
Okay.
he doesn't want that
Fire,
either,
life
right?
safety,
Right.
Engineering, all that stuff will go through the normal process.
Okay, perfect.
It's really just like the aesthetic.
I think it's just a matter of Craig seeing design
Just a wording
review
thing.
as something different than what we're seeing it, which
Yeah.
was kind of surprising to me when I got here too, because I'm used to that being called site plan review. But anyway.
Yeah, if we need to tinker with the language.
And then assignment and transfer, we removed the partial assignment stuff.
It is
It's gone.
removed.
There's no applause? That was a big hit.
Couple applause, just a couple.
Let me review to make sure.
Okay.
I mean, go to 11:41. Go to 11:41.
Reaganing.
I like that. Trust but no.
That was one of Ronald Reagan's things.
So like, thanks for wasting my time. Yeah.
That was a big, yeah, very big give.
Keep going down 11, yeah.
We'll let you review though, Liam.
So Jeff, you state.
Oh, is what's that, what? Is there a gotcha or you don't like, or you like it?
That's kind of like the it depends coming from an attorney. I don't even know what we're talking about. I just got the.
Was that,
So the less than all, there is a provision that we can assign the whole thing based on county approval.
Okay.
So that was your on the less than?
No.
He's just messing with it.
Okay, fine.
Struck the whole thing, it's, you can't do it.
so did this come after the version that you sent over on Tuesday? Was this in the version you sent over Tuesday?
Right.
Okay, because there's still a couple little pieces that we'll have to go clean up in the rest of the agreement.
You mean that reference this?
Not necessarily reference, but are imply
Okay,
the
all right,
partial
that's-
assignments.
Well, basically, we surrender. If there's anything in there that implies this, we take it out.
Okay, I'll identify that for you.
This is what I was complaining about last time, right?
Yeah.
That we're not this, the previous.
Yeah.
Unless there's a that we don't.
Well, I'll leave that up to Liam. But I appreciate it, because I really want it to stay with you guys, and I think that gives you the incentive to want to continue doing rather than relying on somebody else.
Well, there's some things that are being proposed as well that we would have a really hard time trying to administer. Open space, for example, if they were allowed to divvy out who gets what. Other developments. Number one, if I'm okay with partial assignment, it's because they've already solved those concerns with some proposal in their development agreement. But number two, not for 30 years. The term of 30 years plus some is, I want to be very cautious about what we're committing ourselves to.
And I think for us, we just thought if that ever comes up, then we gotta come through a legislative process. to see if it's like-
I got a question for Charlie. You guys, I like it this way better. Just because of the fact that, sorry, the thought was left me.
We have to come back. It's not a.
Yeah, oh, just thinking about just the process that it's been to get to where we are here. I don't wanna go through any phase of that with
Yeah,
anybody
yeah.
else.
We don't trust anybody but you to do that, is what he's saying.
Well, but I don't even trust him to do this.
No, that's why we have all these teeth in here, right?
That's why we keep doing this, right?
So that's all we have. I don't know what else.
Charlie had some.
Well, I think you've covered all the things that I had concerns with last week, so thank you.
Anyway, this,
I know that, we've already hashed this out, but I just wanna make a quick comment on the open space stuff. The reason why I don't want the HOA or the private part to be counted is because they're getting, yes, it is part of it and they're gonna be using it too and they need some, but they're making the impact on the community. So the community that already exists is the ones that should benefit by getting some public open space. That's why I feel like that's where that number should come from and the other shouldn't be considered. Hopefully that makes sense, you know what I'm saying?
No, that's fair.
Charlie, what else do you have? I think we're.
From the top,
They're tapping out.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
hang on.
Open space behind your house.
It's still not done?
Oh, I guess.
But the one that the trail goes through. You know, which one?
Oh, yeah, the big.
That's in an HOA subdivision, but you can go use it anytime you want.
And we're including those. As long as.
Right, but they could put up a sign that says HOA only, like in Farmington and other places.
We,
if they
we
want
actually
to.
see that in the Ogden Valley, the HOA will go put a sign up that says private property, no trespassing. Even though the trail was a gift from the developer in exchange for additional bonus density. And so then we gotta go up there and go take those signs down.
Yeah.
Now, in some cases, we didn't do our due diligence and make sure we got an easement on them, and so sometimes we just have to go and wrestle a little bit with the HOA, but it is nice to not have to do that.
So yeah, they could be generous like your neighborhood and say, yeah, come and use it, but they could also say, we're sick of you, we're
So
done,
maybe some sort of easements, like
because it's their private property.
public easement on the ones that are going to be public.
So that's, I mean, we don't even need to write that down. It's just something that we as staff should do if we know how to do our job. That was a little bit more of a slight of people before me than I meant it to be, but it's just, I see things and I go, who in the heck you used to work here? Okay. So I had a couple of questions, just want to make sure, let's see.
Ready for the can of worms to open up?
No, it really isn't. Okay, so everywhere I call out partial assignment provision, Craig's comment is to be discussed. Did those get?
Just yeah, they're.
Partial assignment's gone in general, so
So it's all gone, okay.
you probably just got to delete comments or something.
And Daniel, you said that was a big gift, that's not a big gift, that just means you're gonna guarantee to do your job.
What I told Charlie in that one is, like, for us, partial assignments, you wanna lock me down on this for 20 years, but I can't lock you down on your side for 20 years.
I know.
Cause it's like, I would love to work with Charlie on the other side for the next 20 years on this project, but his
Oh, yeah,
guy.
like-
Put my name
Charlie?
straight into it.
You're already gone. We're not even talking about it.
I like what we got, but like, if they, it needed to be like, you wore me out. I still want it to be like.
I do feel like we were the cause.
We can make millions by just giving it off to somebody else. And
Yeah, we-
giving it to some other.
Yeah,
We're
we get
good.
it. We get it.
As far as section 5 goes, I understand Liam and Craig had a good conversation yesterday, the day before. Do you guys know what the resolution is on that or have one
I
yet?
think they're down to one thing, and you were just sidebarring about it, so.
Okay. Okay, and that's vested rights, just so you guys know.
Not our purview.
There is one thing under early termination right, this is regarding, when there's a jurisdictional change, basically it's 5.6 and it says. If the land use authority changes, they go into a city or annex or whatever it is, then. We no longer are gonna require them to be beholden to this agreement. I did ask them to add in a little bit in there to say, except for those things that need to be improved offsite in the unincorporated county area. So Craig just had a question of what offsites are referring to, and my answer is any kind of improvement to sewer, stormwater, and streets that might be needed offsite. that is roughly proportionate and reasonably related to your project, which.
Yeah, and I think,
we can argue.
well, and I think for us, there is no. Like, we didn't think there was any offsite, so he just wanted you to clarify.
Okay.
If you knew of something.
Let them know that 3,000 houses creates close to 3,200 daily trips. And if that's all routed onto 12th Street, 3,200 daily vehicle trips is.
And the county has no jurisdiction, I guess, on the lower part of 12th Street.
We do on the lower part of 12th Street, but regardless of our jurisdiction, we have the exaction power, UDOT does not. And if we don't exact on behalf of UDOT, UDOT's stuck. We've got another problem in the Ogden Valley, good thing that thing's incorporated, where we had a big subdivision go in up Old Snow Basin Road, and no improvements were made to Highway 39. And UDOT, and it caused UDOT to come over to talk to the commissioners and say, why the heck are you guys doing this? We need you to get us turn lanes for these kind of.
The planning commission probably recommended it, and then UDOT said no.
Actually, no. Staff.
Like we did at 2247.
Staff and planning, you're right, staff and planning commission required it. And it was a commissioner who said, we don't need that, that's a UDOT road, that's not in our jurisdiction. So it was the same issue, and then it just kind of turned into a nightmare, so UDOT relies on us to do that.
But on 5.6, Charlie, is that for the whole agreement? That there's no turnover to the to whatever the incorporated area, whatever it is?
It doesn't say there's not a turnover, it says that they've got the right to terminate. So if they go into a new jurisdiction, they can pull back on this and say, hey, we're gonna go with whatever the new rules are.
Okay,
for jurisdiction.
that seems okay, but it's not. Because if it's a new incorporation, they won't know how to handle this. If it's an annexation, there'll be a lot of disagreement. And so there should be room for negotiation in it. But I think this agreement should have some carryover power wherever this goes. I don't think it should be a complete start over.
I'm more worried about them in that situation than us.
Yeah.
That's what they should.
That's usually.
The new
right.
jurisdiction has to
But the
accept
dam
this,
is going to
correct?
be us, because we're gonna
As
be
it
part of
is.
that by living in the area.
These guys will have the option to go back to the new municipality and make changes if they want.
Yep.
But when it incorporates, this is locked in.
Yep.
The way it's written here.
Yep. This
Locked
transfers
into
over.
it to the next
Yes.
municipality.
Yes.
Yeah, is that how it is?
It is, yep, so
Okay, okay.
it'll transfer over.
It only changes if they wanna go to the new municipality and ask for a change.
Renegotiate,
Yes.
yeah, okay, that works, that works.
Which concerns me a little bit, but hopefully they wouldn't wanna do it.
I just wanted to make sure that anything they promised to the county actually gets done, because we'll no longer have land use authority, which is our most important remedy to enforce the agreement. We can't withhold building permits if a different city just keeps giving up.
And the things that we put, I mean, if you read the end, it says we dedicate the major streets, which are important from a connectivity standpoint, and we do the river corridor. So those are the two things that.
My notes are just streets, dedication and improvements, streets, stormwater, sewer, roughly proportionate, reasonably related. I'll send you over the language I have here. Let's see. Scrolling.
Are we going over the items you wanted to go over now, Charlie? Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I just wanted to make sure everyone's comfortable with these things.
That was a good sign.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Do what I can to contribute.
Because for some reason, it already feels like it's 10 o'clock.
Hey, we hadn't got through the use table last time or this time.
That's because I wasn't here to speed it up, like, come on.
It says subliminal.
We had good discussion. We had the same banter and everything.
Legal, you pull up 8.3.
It went till 9 because we made it.
8.3.
They did all the hard work.
We were just.
Okay, so there are some changes.
This
I
one?
thought we hacked this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's one.
Sorry,
area.
over. I'm sorry.
This is the section I think you gotta read too to figure out the appraisal and everything.
No, you're good.
Take it out of your file.
No, you're good.
Can we just scroll down?
I got out of my lane a little bit.
Maybe closer to the end of the paragraph here.
Are you looking for a certain word? Do you want me to? Search it? What are you looking for?
You might have taken care of it. The previous version was escrow and improve. when the property right adjacent to the trail?
Yeah, we fixed that.
Okay,
That was discussed last week in the work session.
is there,
The improvements were required with the dedication of 50%. Now we're giving you more lane instead of extra.
but when the improvements within the river corridor are required, that's gonna be when,
When it's adjacent to it.
so
We
my,
have access to it.
my request is within 200 feet. I mean, I can settle on 100 if you want to.
You're concerned about a strip.
You negotiate.
So I mean, I'm,
You win.
I'm concerned about a subdeveloper leaving a strip of land.
So they don't
that-
have to do the
So they don't
improvements.
have to do that, and we see it all the time, unfortunately.
I'm gonna go hold out on building this one street, half cross
You're
section.
training us on all the bad things.
So that we don't have to do the
Don't
improvement.
take notes.
Oh, they don't do.
Right.
They finish all their.
Well, you think about Taylor Landing, B1B. They only did 1A, they didn't do 1B because 1B would have required the construction of 3900 west. And their cost it wasn't proportionate. It is now, they're actually working on it now.
That's because we give them all that other density.
Yep.
But that was also only gonna be a half street.
It was only gonna be.
We got, I feel we got better out of it because we got a full street.
Now, yep. So, yeah, I just wanna make sure there's enough motivation for whoever
we
it
can put
is.
some
Okay.
distance. It's fine.
It's like a used car salesman trying to get somebody to buy something, just the guy trying to buy it, and you're just like, okay, I'm done, just whatever. You
How do I get you into this development agreement today?
Like, these are like.
Need some undercoating?
Probably so. Oil leak coming out of your brake line.
That's right. Oil changes for a year. All right,
just have to bring in your own, you have to have the extra.
let's see, just going through. Craig's question about 4712th Street, my response to Brand just now was the same response I've given Craig, that we want to make sure that we can exact on behalf of UDOT. What else we got?
They've let you do that. I mean, I guess they would let you do that.
There's a huge Supreme Court case, and actually the issue went back to the Supreme Court, I want to say 3 or 4 different times. It's BAM versus West Valley City, B.A.M versus West Valley City, and it was on this issue. Does the city have the right to exact on behalf of UDOT? And the answer that the court gave them is yes. And then the question was, does the city have the right to require improvements to go in on behalf of UDOT? Anyway, so it went back and forth with the Supreme Court. You guys could look it up if you want to.
Sounds really.
Yeah, I don't want, I don't.
Yeah.
We'll take your word.
On that.
Anybody's having trouble sleeping, just give me a call. I'll read you the
Is
wiki
that
page.
B.A.M you said?
Yeah, E.A.M, write that down. 8.8.1. This is really just a clarifying thing, and probably not super necessary. If you want to-
This one, burying utilities?
I think my confusion on this is what we're calling frontage, so. Agrees to underground anything on the property, including any existing overhead distribution level utilities within the property and within any portions of a direct boundary between a right of way and a property's frontage. I think Craig's using a different definition for front. I think he's using the TNZ's definition, or the what's it called, smart code definition of frontage, not our definition of frontage.
We're just saying, like, if we have a strip of dirt on 4700, we'll bury the power line on our strip.
So if we change it to between the street right of way, actually, I think I suggest center line of the street and your property. If there's a power line that runs through there, bury that.
And then I think we added language about subject to our Rocky Mountain Power or
I was
something
gonna say,
approving it.
that's up to the utility to say to do that, yes or no.
Yeah, so it's subject to them approving it, but.
So they're a guest in our right of way, the utility companies are, and if we want them to move, they have to move out at their expense. If we want them to move because a development's coming in, they'll come back and say, sorry, this isn't our thing. This is developers, so the developer has to eat that cost.
Yeah. Which will bury, if they approve, we'll bury it. If
Okay.
they agree.
But we are talking about that space between the center line of the road and that. I think he added the language because we wanted to make sure we couldn't go to the other side of the road and make you bury all those too. I would assume. Okay.
Center line of road on our property. So you just.
Can we make them do stuff on the railroad too?
Please, please, I don't. I know you need oil changes, but.
You're the one who's gonna need those oil
Please
changes.
We wanna see this project go nowhere.
Okay, stormwater.
Power company's getting pretty bad to deal with too.
After our discussion about, a little bit about floodwater and the clarification you guys provided, was there anything else, any other follow-up on floodwater from our last meeting? Okay, I'm still a little bit nervous about not talking about floodwater. Craig's comment was flooding issues is a federal issue, not a county issue. I don't know if he's fully aware of what the county's responsibility is under federal law, but we have to be the floodplain manager. So we do want.
Say that we'll just follow FEMA guidelines for that stuff.
And I think I'm okay with that, as long as we're just following FEMA guideline, well, not just FEMA, sorry, it was FEMA and adopted county standards, because we've got some stricter standards.
We don't have, I mean, FEMA flood zone, we don't really have that much on our property.
No, and that's why I'm not super concerned about that. Just wanted to make sure we're comparing notes. Qualified professional, got that. You guys will have a meeting with the fire folks. Open space. 8.9.2. It's always the 0.2s that are the problem paragraphs with that.
1.2, you said?
It's just illegal.
No, we don't want to leave it. You know this too well. I just seen the first words with open space. We don't want to delete anything in regards to
I
that.
didn't know that's what it was. What is this one about?
8.9 point what?
Two.
Two.
Open space may be owned and or maintained publicly or privately, provided however, if privately owned, in order to qualify as open space, so we do state that pretty explicitly, the area must be open and accessible to the public, including temporary limited use of private open space for a fee. What are your thoughts on that? I've really tried to strike fee as much as I can.
So I think this, and we could put some guardrails around it if you want, but I think what this contemplated is like a family reunion that rents the amphitheater that's owned by the subdivision or something. Like, it's meant to be like a reservation of a venue or something.
Okay.
But anyone.
But anyone can
Yeah.
reserve it,
Can
but it's
reserve
like.
it.
So
we need-
think of,
Do we need further?
think of
Yeah, do we need to even say that?
what's
I don't think.
Green Farms
Uh-huh.
over there. They built that little pavilion or that little community center, deal that anybody from anywhere can come rent it out. But there's a fee to it.
That makes sense, but that's different. I think what I'm getting from Charlie's statement is the Upper Valley issue where Jeff puts a toll booth on the trail. Cause it's private and he makes them.
It's a great idea.
But it won't be counted, it's private.
More bad
so it won't
ideas
count
for
with their
giving
open
them.
space. So what-
So they have to pay a fee for. To probably not be counted, except for this exclusion where you can reserve it.
So
But do
maybe,
we really need to make that distinction? I don't know if that's really worth.
I think it's just like it says, it's private and it's not counted towards open space, right? Do I understand that?
if this is talking about just open space that's public.
Anywhere.
This
But it
is-
does say temporary, it's temporary limited use of private.
private
space for
Open
fee,
space.
Temporary,
What does temporary mean?
not permanent.
But see, you're missing the word in there. It's private open space.
No.
So it won't be counted against what the community is getting anyways, because it's private open space.
It will. It's the private open space that is being counted as public open space.
It's publicly available but privately maintained.
That's right. And we're okay with that as long as it is perpetually publicly available. Now, I'm okay with a fee system for reservations and all that.
If you wanna build some guardrails, that's what the intent is
Okay.
a scenario.
So maybe just temporarily closed for,
Events,
I would say, well,
scheduled events.
How do you govern it right
Well, the
now?
other thing we thought about was like,
No.
if you host a.
So if somebody wants to take over a
community 5K
pavilion,
And you pay an entrance fee
We don't-
and you close down.
we
the
don't
trail for
administer
somebody.
any of that.
Parks and Rec does.
What do you think?
It's a little-
I'm sure they do, yeah, but.
So the county has ways to do that, cause you can go rent the pavilion, you can go rent the Golden Spike, you can go rent that for
Yeah,
yourself.
it exists.
You can rent the Weaver County facilities, yeah.
but,
So,
but,
The
yeah,
question is, do you guys feel like you need to reserve that right in your development
So
agreement?
it's just, I think, no, I know, I think it's just trying to make sure that if that happens, it doesn't cause an issue with you guys coming and saying, well, that's an open space.
Fair.
we did it.
Hands on our hips, you know, and what- how dare you? Okay, so you do wanna
More
make sure.
that than anything, like, if we don't. We just don't wanna have, like, I gave an example, like, if the community shuts down the trail for a 5K. It's, you know, a big community event. And they shut it down for the morning to have a
Yep.
5K, it's a fee to join.
Yep.
You know, something like that, we don't want to come back and say, hey, you closed down the trail, we can't count it.
What about, can you foresee situations where you need overnight, reservations for a fee?
I don't think
I
so.
mean, I can't imagine a whole lot of camping or anything like that going on, but is someone gonna,
But for the most part, on the private part, it's dusk to dawn, right?
yep,
So does the overnight.
sorry, other way around, dawn to dusk.
Okay, yeah.
So the overnight shouldn't matter.
Stay
all night.
It's like 11 o'clock now, Joe.
If you want to
Community
pick a
vampires.
language, guardrail around it, that's fine.
What if we
That's
just
the-
say on an hourly basis, for reservation system on an hourly basis, or just say IE, right? You know, just some example, okay?
Yeah, just.
I'm okay with that.
or we can delete it and no one gets upset if we.
No, I like what it's,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it,
No
and I
one
don't have
get
a problem
upset.
with the way it's worded.
Except for the guy that wants to do something that nobody else is doing right at that moment.
It's like,
And he'll
again,
make
if I
a fuss.
could lock you guys in for 20 years, we're good, because we can't.
Let's start talking salary here, bud.
Why is Brent saying what I'm thinking?
Maybe I'm thinking of the strong, but do we want from dusk to 9? Do you want those restrictions? Cause like, if you're doing fireworks and it has to be 10 in July to be able to do that kind of stuff, like. Are we making it too stringent?
Well, so we're not saying it has to, we're saying that in order to be qualified as publicly accessible open space, at least.
At a minimum.
And the minimum
Has
has
to
to
be
be
open.
open then.
It could be longer if they want it to be, but it does say that the HOA could close it at night if they wanted to.
I'm afraid the fee might get people like having more than temporary, you know, be like, well, it's only all of June, July and August,
Like,
you
it's
know.
called homeless.
But you can rent a Bowery for all of that time too, if you want it.
But they won't they don't let you do it for a day at a time. Sure, there's
Yeah,
restrictions.
and same thing here, you're gonna rent it temporarily, so it might be a day, it might be a week at a time, but
But
still,
it's the privately one that I'm worried about. What if the HOA says, I'm sorry, this is privately, this is for fee use all of the summer.
Believe it or
All
not,
of the
these
usable.
arguments happen between landowners in the county all the time. We've got someone who has a perpetual garage sale every Saturday.
Mhm.
It's like, no, a garage sale is supposed to be an occasional thing. We had to create a law that said no garage sales more than one a month or something like that. I mean, it was
Yeah, there's stuff.
What,
on the
what,
street.
what do you, what do you propose, I mean, what do you
Let's
propose?
put
Just
the
hourly.
language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
hourly reservations. I'm not.
The yard sales.
Also limit to hourly reservations.
Or you could do without fences or gates or without locking it off. I mean, maybe something like that. So
so, cause if you wanna go rent the amphitheater to have an event. You know,
you want to be able to
you
close.
wanna,
Be able
Close
to,
it.
be able to see who's coming in and.
yeah,
I would agree, definitely on the amphitheater, especially.
Have a beer garden.
But it has to be open. I mean, you can close it for that, you know, dusk, dawn or whatever, but it has to be open the other time. Unless there's an event.
Yeah,
That's the
Yes.
idea.
yeah,
Yes.
and we'll just do the hourly rate. I think that solves it, so
Yeah.
it's one more.
agritourism areas will be open then.
Can you quit saying so much?
And during.
Figuring this meeting out forever.
Established.
She's thinking it.
What's the solution for private spaces along the river? if you wanted to do a restaurant or something like that along the river.
What do you mean? Solution.
What do you guys
I
want?
think everything's SUP.
Special
I know we decided you had to come to the committee.
Okay,
And the chamber.
that's right. we
Yeah,
did
I think
solve
it's
that.
all just SUPs, so we'd have to come back and talk about it.
Okay, no, that's perfect. That solves that issue. Well, that's why Craig said this appears to be a dated comment. Is it still applicable? Okay. Quality control. Solve conditional use issues. What did we decide on for final improvements along the corridor? I mean, we've talked a lot about how to make sure we get the corridor, but
So we have this section that has the minimums.
I've got,
We went through for a while.
right now I'm looking at 8.9.5.2.
And then we have,
Stinking 22s.
Oh yeah, another 0.2.
and then we'll do the plan that will supersede those sections, is what we decided.
Okay.
I think it's, and I don't think that's changed since,
No, we didn't do anything there.
yeah. We just accepted what you guys put in there as the minimums, and then we'll come in with a plan more detailed.
Okay.
At some point.
Okay. Drainage retention. Okay, good. And pavilions, minimum stuff. Okay, I think that is. That's it. I think we talked about everything else. I honestly, if we weren't reviewing development agreements with the planning commission, I probably would have put this on an agenda last meeting and recommended approval. But where we are, and there's a lot of things that we gotta hammer out, and I wanna make sure you guys are comfortable with a lot, drinking from the fire hose. We're here.
Everybody's telling Brenda's you slow the process down.
I was only looking at Brandon, I wasn't necessarily directing it to.
You can blast this stuff through in another month.
So that was everything you wanted to cover?
No, we cannot.
Was there anything else, Jeff? Anything?
No, I think if there's anything else, we just, yeah.
Ask everybody but Sarah, how come? Will you email me the
He wasn't paying attention.
Charlie, do you? I don't think.
Just kidding.
Will you text
So now,
me?
My email.
are we?
I've never emailed, we don't get any of your.
All right.
We normally don't pass out that information.
Remember that time
Otherwise,
you was gonna take me on a trip?
So Charlie?
You texted me. and I'll
In
send
fact,
it.
the whole committee.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for that bourbon tasting.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and then the following
We
day.
be on the hearing,
Yep.
or following
Yep.
day or
Sorry.
following week.
Wait,
And
You're
I
right.
think
So work session.
So I was gonna say, can we talk schedule?
Sounds like to me, you sound like you're ready to go to a hearing.
Yep.
Okay.
Very
Do
good.
we, okay, so I'm gonna ask the planning
Hey,
commissioner,
we're ready to go to a hearing. Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
can I ask a question first?
No.
Okay, go ahead. No, I just was wondering if everybody was comfortable going to the public hearing without another work session the week before, because we kind of made arrangements for that to happen if we needed it. So if anybody feels like they need it, speak up.
I do not. I prefer-
Option all that last 2 weeks.
Okay, all right. I do.
Let Liam find something substantial.
But what Liam might find probably doesn't pertain to us.
Let's,
So if Liam does find something that pertains to us, then we need to know about it.
Yeah.
And then if we need to have, Liam or Charlie for that matter. If we need to have another meeting, it'll just be kind of on an emergency type basis.
Yep.
Okay, that sound okay to you guys? Okay.
just
On one condition,
Condition.
as long as we have a cleaned up version of this document 2 weeks prior to the meeting.
what do you think cleaned up version means?
Regarding anything that involves the planning commission. Everything we've hashed out, Liam can deal on his legal crap and all that stuff that we don't care about.
So basically the term sheet, should we go off of that? Those are the sections
As long as it says everything that's in the
Essentially.
section.
Yeah,
I don't think, I mean.
like
It's
those
clean.
are
I mean,
really
that-
the.
We can make a couple tweaks this week, and then as far as we're concerned,
Let me ask you this question a little bit differently. If the planning division, the developer and the county commission makes tweaks to that, well, let's exclude the county commission. We just make tweaks to it before it gets to the county commission. Are you guys gonna be upset with us?
Depending on what
That's
the
kind of
tweaks
what
are.
Ren said.
So
He'd like to
non,
see something what we're voting on,
and that's,
rather than just a vote.
yeah, and that's why I'm a little bit concerned about blacklining exactly what it is. As long as we have the planning concepts nailed down.
Okay, here's the thing with that though. We can approve what's in front of us. And recommend approval based on that. We can feel good about it, cause we hashed out what we want. If the three upstairs decide to make a change between there, there's nothing we can do about that. That's their decision. And that's the way the process works. But as long as we feel comfortable on what we're recommending to the commission,
We'll get you guys a cleaned up version and
that's all we can do.
any kind of wordsmithing that we have to do on the back end, we'll do afterwards. I think
And
that's
I think the county commission has enough, just like we've seen with what went on in the previous work session. If it's a big enough change, they're gonna kick it back to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel confident they will do that.
I do too.
So I don't have any concerns on, but at least we know what we're voting on. With some time to review it.
So pretty
Okay.
much this,
So
is
you're-
that what you're talking about, like?
You're talking about for the hearing. Not another work session.
I don't want another work session, but
as
before
long as
we,
there's not a bunch of.
before it goes in front of the public and that we can speak. To what we have in front of
Okay.
us that potentially we could vote on.
And if there's any major changes, you're gonna let us know.
Yep.
You and or Liam. And then we can determine at that point in time whether we need to have another work session or not.
perfect. That's
Does that,
good to me.
Brent, does that work along what you're talking about?
That's what I
Okay.
want.
Anybody else?
That's my going away wish.
Okay,
So I just wanna talk dates so that we're all, so by May 27th, in your inboxes, you guys need to have the. Quote, clean copy for planning.
Yep.
Okay,
I can send it to you right now. Just accept all changes.
So when's the public hearing you guys coming?
We've noticed it for the
yeah, for the 11th.
Of June?
10th, of June.
I'll get that.
And it's in that, will we get like the exhibits and stuff?
Yes.
Exhibits are all done.
Yes.
So like we see the exhibits, like I wanna.
Yep,
And you can see why.
yeah,
I hope you can
Yeah.
see why.
yeah, so I'll make, yeah,
And so
that's
yeah,
on my calendar.
So it's still gonna be the 10th, we're not moving up to the 3rd.
No, the third was
There's a
reserved
work
for
session.
just a work session. We were taking the time from the Upper Valley because they don't do very many work sessions with them anymore. And we were gonna take their spot if we need another work session. That's what the third's for.
Okay.
So,
So to recap on what the public hearing will be about, it'll be about a rezone to the form-based zone. A rezone to the TNZ, just we'll do it all in with the same ordinance, once it gets to the county commission. It'll be the development agreement and it will be the ordinance creating the TNZ. Right, am I missing anything? Okay, so basically 4 things.
Don't schedule anything else on that meeting.
So I will do my best.
None of this
So can
sneaky
we do
stuff.
a public hearing on each one of those items individually?
No.
Or can we just say
We'll-
public hearing for all 4 items?
we'll
Otherwise,
combine
they're gonna come up at every single.
And say the same thing,
opportunity and say the same, and some will be valid and some will not.
We'll
That's why-
we'll just do one.
so if there's anything for Pat, or if there's anything for Heritage, it ain't gonna be on the agenda.
You can't say names like that.
Oh, yes, I can, I did.
Stop the recording.
Boot me off.
What are they gonna do? Fire us?
Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
Here, I'm gonna promise to relay that back to Rick. And I'll let him make the final call, but I'm pretty sure we can make that happen.
It'd be great, minimal as possible.
Yeah, okay,
All right.
any other questions? We could stay for the rest of the meeting.
No, motion? Hurry before Charlie changes his mind.
We'll sneak something else in. So moved.
Well, I got something else.
Aye, too late.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna ask.
you brought.